Hey guys. Tonight, we're stepping barefoot into a world with no shoes. No phones. And no fridge full of snacks. Just the open sky. Cold caves. And the occasional dire wolf eyeballing you like a breakfast burrito. You blink against the smoky glow of firelight while the wind outside howls through a jagged stone opening. Your breath curls in the freezing air. Nearby, someone is coughing. Someone else is already sharpening something that looks sharp enough to ruin your day. You're not sure what's for breakfast, but it's probably not good, and might still be twitching. Welcome to the Paleolithic morning routine. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And what time it is there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake curled in the back corner of a limestone cave. Your head pressed into something lumpy that's probably a rolled-up fur, or possibly a half-rotten hide. The fire burned low in the night, and now the air bites at your face like an irritated ice sprite. A tiny child is crying somewhere. Someone's snoring like a rock slide. You pull a rough cloak around your shoulders and groan. Mornings in the Stone Age aren't gentle. There's no sun alarm or alarm clock. No espresso. The light outside shifts from inky black to a sort of cold gray fog, leaking through the cave mouth like an unwelcome spirit. A few embers blink from last night's fire. You get up stiffly, nudging the ashes with a stick, hoping for heat. Your fingers are already numb. This is how you start most days. Freezing, tired, and slightly annoyed that no one else is up fixing this mess. Someone finally stirs old Gura, one of the elders. He wraps a bearskin tighter and gives you a look that clearly says, "You better get that fire going, or we all freeze." There are no words exchanged yet, but your grunt is eloquent enough. You dig out some dried grass and blow gently, coaxing life from the coals like some primitive barista frothing milk, only with less glamour and more soot up your nose. The cave you share is more of a rock cathedral than a cozy home. The ceiling looms high with blackened stalactites that drip occasionally on someone's head. The walls are covered in soot, old scratch marks, and if you squint, maybe a doodle of a deer someone carved last winter. There's a pile of flint shards in one corner, a half-gnawed mammoth femur in another, and about 3 layers of smells: smoke, sweat, and something fishy no one wants to talk about. You finally get the fire going. Flames crackle. Light flickers. Warmth spreads like a miracle. The tribe starts to shuffle up, yawning and stretching. There's no privacy. No separate rooms, just one shared cavern, where everyone from babies to grizzled old toothless hunters sleeps in a jumble of furs and limbs. You're all meat sacks huddled against the night. And speaking of meat sacks, your stomach growls like a cornered wolf. Breakfast, if it exists, will be leftovers from yesterday's hunt. A dried chunk of gazelle, some mashed up roots, or maybe some nuts if the squirrels didn't steal them. You chew slowly on something tough, rubbery, and hopefully dead. Everyone else does the same. It's not about flavor. It's about surviving the next 3 hours without fainting. The elders mumble something, some sort of strategy for the day, mostly involving food. Food is always the plan. The words are half-formed proto-language and half pantomime. Gura points west. That means you're hunting, or foraging, or possibly avoiding that saber-tooth that claimed the eastern ravine last week. No one argues. There's no voting in the Stone Age. You do what keeps you alive. You step outside the cave. Squinting at the bleak morning, the ground crunches underfoot with frost. The trees are bare, skeletal. The air smells like cold moss and old charcoal. You stretch your limbs, every joint, protesting. It's hard to believe this was paradise for your ancestors, but it kind of is. There's clean air. There's fresh water. And bonus no landlords. Still, the danger to coziness ratio is pretty brutal. As the sky lightens, you glance up at a flock of birds tracing a line across the pink-tinged clouds. You wonder if they're smarter than you. They always seem to know when to fly somewhere warmer. You don't get that choice. You're stuck here, on foot, hoping the reindeer migration path hasn't changed. Again, inside, preparations begin. Someone's mashing animal fat into a crack in the cave wall to block a draft. Someone else is tying stone blades to wooden shafts using sinew and prehistoric optimism. A baby is chewing on a bone whistle. You grab your own kit, a wrapped-up hide with your prized flint knife, a pouch of dried fungus, and a sharp stick that's seen better mammoths. Historians still argue whether this part of the morning, this communal rustling, this routine of mending, prepping, grumbling, was the root of human society. Cooperation was key. So was gossip. And so, it seems, was group irritation. You roll your eyes as two hunters bicker over who broke the last spear. Drama, a timeless human trait. A fringe theory even suggests some early humans trained ravens to scout food sources, though most scholars roll their eyes at that one. Still, it's not impossible. The birds are watching you suspiciously from the trees. One of them squawks. You squawk back. It's a moment. By now, everyone's moving. The fire's strong. Spirits are low but functional. And it's time to face the world. You head back inside the cave one last time to grab your sling stones. One's shaped like a heart. You keep that one for luck. You'll need it, because today, like every day, starts with a cold cave, an empty stomach, and a slim chance of making it to bedtime with all your limbs intact. You're still chewing that leathery strip of meat when someone gestures toward the cave mouth with a sharp chin thrust. It's time. No one says, "Let's head out," because no one needs to. You all just kind of grunt and go. That's how things work in your little tribe. Language is optional. But hunger is not. You sling your tools across your shoulder flint blade. Pointed stick. Stone, hammer, and shuffle out with the others. Blinking at the harsh daylight. It's cold enough to make your nose sting. And your toes are already starting to forget they exist. You walk single file. Footprints, crunching in the frost behind you. A line of humans barely distinguishable from the ancient pines around you. The forest is quiet, but not peacefully so. It's that eerie, waiting kind of silence, like the world is watching to see if you'll trip over a root and get eaten by something larger. Today's task: hunting. Not the fun kind with camouflage and snacks. This is the desperate, chase it until it drops kind. The plan is vague. There's a clearing downriver where reindeer sometimes gather, sometimes being the key word here. It's like planning a dinner party where the food might just never show up. As you walk, your eyes scan the ground for tracks. A broken twig here. A tuft of fur there. Your brain has slowly learned to read the language of the forced hoof prints like commas. Scrapes on bark like exclamation points. You pause at one set of tracks, cloven hooves. To fresh. And heading west. Everyone clusters around, nodding solemnly like they know what they're doing. One guy immediately steps in the tracks and ruins them. You all glare. The world around you is brutal and beautiful, in equal measure. Snow blankets the underbrush in patches. Icicles dangle like teeth from branches. Somewhere in the distance, something howls. Could be a wolf. Could be worse. No one says anything. But you all tighten your grip on your weapons. You cross a shallow stream, hopping from stone to stone. Your foot slips, plunging into the icy water. You gasp, teeth clenching. Great. Widfoot. That'll be fun when the wind picks up. You keep moving, because stopping means freezing. And freezing means dying, with a truly embarrassing expression on your face. After an hour of trudging, you catch a glimpse of movement. Everyone drops low, shapes ahead dark against the snow. You squint. Reindeer. Real? Actual. Non-hallucinatory reindeer. Grazing like they don't know they're about to star in the worst surprise party of their lives. You spread out with the others, circling wide, moving as silently as a bunch of half-frozen people in crunchy furs can manage. You grasp your spear tightly. Your heart pounds in your ears. One guy Nokus breathing like a dying walrus. You glare. He glares back. Teamwork. Suddenly, someone lets out a sharp whoop. That's the signal. You rise, hurl your spear, and sprint into chaos. Reindeer scatter. Spears fly. People yell. One animal slips and tumbles. 2 hunters charge. You chase another, your lungs burning. Your legs pumping through snowdrifts. Your target swerves. And you let fly another spear. It misses by a good 3 meters and thunks into a log. The reindeer escapes. You wheeze dramatically. Meanwhile, the others drag down a buck. It's kicking wildly, but someone clubs it behind the head. The rest of you arrive just in time to catch your breath and poke it for good measure. Everyone's panting. No one is smiling. You nod at each other. Success. Sort of. Historians still argue whether these hunts were coordinated with actual planning or just controlled chaos. Some think there were roll chasers, flankers, finishers, while others think it was a free-for-all with bonus grunting. Either way, you're all here. You got meat. And only one person twisted an ankle this time. Improvement. Now comes the fun part. Butchering. Someone hands you a flint blade. You kneel in the snow and start slicing. The steam rises from the carcass like ghostly wisps. Your fingers are slick and cold. The smell is strong, metallic, and oddly comforting because it means food. You scrape sinew for thread, cut meat into strips, and joke with the others about who almost got trampled. You make a joke. It's not a good one, but someone snorts. Caveman comedy. Very niche. Very cold. As you pack up the meat, The sun starts to dip. Time feels vague out here, dictated more by shadows than clocks. You sling chunks of reindeer on wooden poles and start the long 2-4. Slow hike home. It's heavier now. Your back aching. But your spirits are weirdly high. There's a primal satisfaction in not starving. Again, you pass a set of massive claw marks on a tree. Not fresh, but big enough to ruin your day if the maker returns. Everyone picks up the pace just a little. You pretend not to notice that Nock is limping more than usual. He'll be fine. Or not. You mentally assign him last watch tonight, just in case. On the way back, someone mentions the time a man got attacked by a cave lion while relieving himself behind a bush. That's now the tribe's favorite cautionary tale, complete with sound effects. You all laugh, because if you don't laugh, you cry. And crying freezes your eyelids shut. One person hums a tune. It's barely a tune, more of a repeating rise and fall, but it syncs with your steps and makes the journey feel like less of a slog. Some believe this was the beginning of music. Others think early music was for rituals or impressing potential mates. Still others argue music started by accident. Someone dropped a rock on a hollow log and liked the sound. You just like that it passes the time. You arrive back at the cave just as the sky turns purple. Inside, the fire still crackles. The others look up as you stumble in. Snow-covered and exhausted. You toss a meat bundle near the hearth and collapse onto a fur. Someone starts singing that awful hum again. Someone else passes you a bowl of broth. It smells faintly like yesterday's feet. But it's warm. You close your eyes and let the heat seep into your bones. One more day survived. One more night to get through. And in the Stone Age. That's a win. Your arms still ache from hauling meat yesterday. Your legs are sore in places you forgot existed. But when the first morning chill slaps your face, you're up again. Because pain doesn't get you a day off in the Paleolithic. You grunt something that might mean good morning, or might mean, my spine is made of rocks. And rub your face with snow to wake up. It's refreshing, in the way being punched in the face is technically refreshing. Today, you're not hunting. Today, you're making tools because that chunk of reindeer won't slice itself. And nobody wants to chew through hide for 3 hours. The edge on your flint blade dulled yesterday. And now it's basically a rock-shaped insult. So it's off to the scrap pile near the back of the cave, where discarded shards of chert and flint sparkle like treasure in the dust. You squat down on your haunches and start to work. You've done this so often, it's second nature. Select a chunk. Strike it with a hammer stone. Rotate. Strike again. The goal is sharp edges, and not cutting yourself, which is harder than it sounds. A good flake feels almost too sharp, like glass dipped in attitude. Nearby, a younger member of the tribe is attempting their first blade and mostly just hitting themselves. You mutter a suggestion. They ignore it. Fine. Let them bleed. That's how you learned. As chips scatter, you think about how incredible it is that this simple act, banging one rock against another, literally changed the course of humanity. Historians often point to tool-making as one of the earliest cognitive milestones, proof that humans weren't just reacting to nature, but shaping it. Some tools have been found that are over 2 million years old, carefully shaped, reused, and even passed down like stone heirlooms, kind of like your grandfather's old wrench set, but with more mammoth guts on them. You hold your new flake up to the light. Test its edge against a strip of hide. And smile. Perfect. You don't say it out loud, there are no oohs and ahs in the Paleolithic, but you allow yourself a moment of smug silence. You might be a walking pile of frostbitten joints. But you still got it. Tool making isn't just about knives. Though, it's spears, awls, scrapers, hand axes, and everything you make has to be multi-purpose. Because your garage is a mossy ledge behind a rock. And your storage space is a leather pouch the size of a sandwich. Today, you decide to repair your spear. You pull out a bundle of dried sinew, which smells slightly like angry cheese, and begin wrapping the flint tip onto the shaft. It's a fiddly job, made worse by the fact that your fingers are still half numb. A woman near you is carving a chunk of bone into a needle. You nod to her, and she nods back. That's about as affectionate as it gets. You both know that without these tiny, tedious projects, the group wouldn't last a week. Warm clothes, shelter skins, meat-cutting tool sets, all stone and bone and sore hands. Historians still argue whether tool-making was evenly divided between genders or more specialized. Some camps suggest men hunted while women made tools. But that's based on pretty flimsy assumptions. Many believe everyone did a bit of everything, because when your survival depends on it, job descriptions go out the window. One fun little fringe theory claims that prehistoric people sometimes modified their tools to be intentionally beautiful etching lines, balancing symmetry, maybe even adding flair. Why? To impress others? To show off? To pass time while waiting for stew to boil? No one knows. But it's oddly comforting to think the first human artist might have been a bored toolmaker doodling on a scraper. Your hands ache. Your stomach grumbles. But your pile of tools grows. You even manage to fix a broken hammerstone by wedging it into a wooden handle. You dub it thump rock in your head. No one else will call it that. But it makes you feel like a blacksmith from a prehistoric fantasy novel. Eventually, the group moves outside to test the weapons. There's a target stump that's been thoroughly abused by generations of spear wielders. You take a deep breath and hurl your new spear. It hits with a satisfying thunk dead center. You don't smile, but internally, you're doing a little Stone Age victory dance. Others try their weapons. One guy's spear shatters on impact. Everyone pretends not to laugh. But it's hard. You clap him on the shoulder with exaggerated sympathy and quietly hand him a better flint. As the sun climbs, your work shifts. Now, it's scraping hides. You pin a stinking reindeer skin to the ground with bone stakes and begin pulling your sharpest flake along the surface. The hair comes off in clumps. The hide curls and stretches. The smell is pungent. There's really no way to describe it, except to say it smells like something that wants to still be alive, but gave up halfway. Still, this is the good part. Once scraped and dried, this hide will become boots, cloaks, pouches, anything your tiny society needs. You hum to yourself, mimicking that rhythmic tone from yesterday's walk. The same notes again and again. The woman next to you picks it up. It becomes a duet of sorts, echoing through the trees, blending with the gentle rasp of flint on flesh. By afternoon, your knees are stiff, your back is screaming, and your hands look like they lost a fight with a porcupine. But the tools are ready. The hides are prepped. and the fire is high again. The group settles back inside the cave, stretching out, comparing scrapes, sharing a few slurred words about the next hunt. You nibble on a piece of dried meat that tastes vaguely like tree bark dipped in sadness. One kid is trying to whistle through a bird bone. It sounds like someone strangling a goose. Everyone pretends not to notice. But even in this quiet, smoke-filled space, you feel something strange pride. You built something today. You made survival a little less miserable. You turned trash into tools, bones into clothes, and flint into something fierce. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you'll probably break it all again. That's just how it goes. You wake to the sharp tang of ash in your nose and someone stepping on your foot. It's still dark out, but a few embers glow in the hearth, flickering over sleeping figures wrapped in furs. Someone mumbles in their sleep. Someone else is already up, muttering to themselves, while tying leather thongs around their ankles. Today's not for sharpening blades or scraping hides. Today, you're going hunting again, but not because you're excited, because yesterday's haul is almost gone. And half the tribe has that quiet, hollow look of people who've been trying to pretend they're not starving. You step out into the freezing morning, breath curling like smoke. The forest is quiet, but it's that special kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're not alone. A twig snaps somewhere far off. You pretend not to hear it. You're hoping for deer again. Maybe even wild pig, if the ground isn't too frozen for them to root around in. Your little group of hunters, 5 of you, set off through the snow-crusted underbrush. The lead hunter, the guy everyone calls Boar, has a spear that looks like it's killed things that had names. You trail behind him, still not quite over your last hunting performance, which mostly involved slipping and yelling while your spear stabbed the ground nowhere near anything edible. This time, you plan to redeem yourself. You move in silence. Every sound, your boots crunching snow, the swish of leather. Even your breath feels too loud. Somewhere above, a hawk circles lazily. You take that as a good omen? Or a bad one? Depends on the hawk. The world smells of pine and cold. You cross a frozen stream, pausing just long enough to scan for animal tracks in the soft mud underneath. Nothing recent. A few rabbit trails. Maybe a fox. But no sign of anything big enough to feed a dozen people. You keep moving. Then, you see it, just at the edge of a thicket. Antlers. A deer. Head down, pawing at the earth. Your heart starts pounding in your ears. The others freeze. You all crouch low. Boar raises a hand slowly, points, then signals you to the left. You obey, slipping through brittle ferns and curling behind a mossy boulder. Your hands are sweaty despite the cold. This is it. No time to mess up. You grip your spear tight. You count 3 breaths. Then someone gives the signal, a sharp shout, and the deer bolts. You leap up and give chase, boots slamming into frozen ground. The world a blur of white and bark. The deer veers left, straight into Boar's path. But he misses. You see your chance. You throw, and thunk. It hits. Not a kill shot, but a solid hit in the flank. The animal stumbles, crashes into a tree, and collapses. You whoop, heart surging. The others rush in and finish the job with quick, practice strikes. It's done. And this time, you didn't embarrass yourself. The deer is a young buckling, but enough meat to matter. As you all start to butcher it, someone slaps your shoulder hard enough to make you cough. Approval. Caveman style. You smile despite the gore on your hands. The air is thick with the smell of blood and snow and cold bark. You feel, just briefly, like you've done something heroic. Historians still argue whether these early hunts were carefully strategized or more spontaneous bursts of chaos. Some point to archaeological sites with signs of complex trap stitches, stone walls, even disguised pits as proof that our ancestors were long-term planners. Others say most hunts were just desperate ambushes and pure luck. Judging by your own experiences, the truth is probably both. Strategy meets panic. Planning meets flailing. You notice something strange while cutting the animal open. Deep gouges in its rear flank. Older than your spear wound. Claw marks. Big ones. A predator had chased this one recently. You all exchange glances. You're not the only hunters in the forest. It's decided quickly you'll haul the meat and bones back fast, before whatever left those claw marks decides to come back and finish the job. You carve, slice, and tie strips of sinew together with practiced speed. One person carries the antlers like a trophy. You're left with the hindquarter. It's heavy, awkward, and starts leaking onto your leg immediately. Charming. On the way back, the weather turns. Snow flurries start drifting down. Soft at first, and then sharp. Visibility drops. The path twists through trees that look increasingly unfamiliar. You try not to panic, but every tree now feels like it's watching you. One guy insists he knows the way. Boar says nothing and just keeps walking. You follow him. Eventually, mercifully, you spot the bluff above your cave. Smoke curls from the entrance. You shout to announce your return. A few people run out to help. The fire is fed. Meat is roasted. There's laughter agendry. Creaky laughter like a door hinge. But laughter nonetheless. Someone starts carving the antlers into tools and ornaments. You hand off the hindquarter and sit by the fire, wiping blood and snow from your arms. Someone passes you a roasted strip of meat. You don't even wait for it to cool. You burn your tongue and don't care. It's worth it. One older woman is singing a strange melody over a boiling pot, something about the wind and the bones, and remembering. You hum along, even though you have no idea what the words mean. Maybe no one does. Maybe they're just old sounds that survived because they feel right. There's a fringe theory that ancient songs were used to encode information about hunting paths and animal behavior. Like a musical map you memorized before literacy existed, the fire dances higher. Shadows stretch along the cave walls. You watch them, flicker deer, trees, hunters, a reenactment in smoke and light. You let your eyes close for a second. You don't want to say it aloud, but today felt kind of good. You helped, you succeeded, and no one got mauled by a giant cat, yet. You wake the next morning with your face mashed into fur and a dull ache in your arms that feels deeply personal. But it's not a hunting day. No one's waving spears or pointing at trees. Instead, someone nudges you with a toe and hands you a grubby handful of twine. It's a foraging day, which means you're going to spend the next several hours hunched over in bushes like a confused goat. You grunt, stretch, and prepare yourself emotionally for the glamour of digging in the dirt, while hunting might get the stories, the praise, the slow-motion firelight reenactments. Foraging is the real MVP of prehistoric survival. Without tubers, nuts, seeds, and berries, your tribe would be nothing but a sad collection of protein-poisoned corpses. You and the gatherers head out just after sunrise. The morning is dewy and smells of damp moss. You wrap a fur around your shoulders and trudge into the forest with a woven pouch slung at your side. It already smells faintly of last week's onion sore, something onion-adjacent. There's a kid tagging along too young to be useful and too loud to sneak up on anything. Someone gives them a stick to hit rocks with. This is considered childcare. You fan out along the riverbank, eyes scanning for anything edible. The ground is still hard in spots, the cold clinging to the roots. But you know where to dig beneath that curled fern. Next to the lichen-covered boulder, you sink your fingers into the soil, wiggle them past worms and pebbles, and yank out a knobby root that smells like spicy dirt. You sniff it. Safe. Probably. Some people look at this work and think it's tedious, but you find it oddly satisfying. There's something meditative about rooting around for sustenance while squirrels throw shade from above. The forest hums around you. Insects buzz. A breeze stirs through the leaves. Occasionally, someone shrieks and yells, "Spider!" But that's just part of the ambiance. You reach into a hollow log and pull out a cluster of small white mushrooms. You pose. Are they the good kind, or the "oops, see you in spirit world" kind? You squint, sniff, and do that thing where you compare it to the mushroom memory bank in your head. You toss one into your pouch. Then, very carefully, do not eat it. Someone else can be the test subject later. Historians still argue whether prehistoric people had formal knowledge systems for plants, or if it was just trial, error, and a whole lot of hallucinations. There's evidence of complex medicinal use: willow bark for pain, specific herbs for digestion, and some roots that probably made you see your ancestors waving from the clouds. A fringe theory even suggests that shamans intentionally poisoned themselves in small doses to induce visions. You, however, are trying to avoid food that screams back. Your pouch slowly fills some wild garlic, a handful of nuts, a few thistle roots, and the weird mushroom that you're still giving side-eye. You trade a chunk of smoked meat with another gatherer for 3 wrinkled apples. They have teeth marks, but it's unclear if those were human or raccoon. You don't ask. As midday approaches, the sun peeks through the tree canopy, turning everything gold and green and surprisingly magical. You take a break, sitting on a log, chewing a stalk of something vaguely celery-shaped. Around you, others are comparing finds, laughing about someone who tried to pick up a porcupine last year. It was dark, and he still limps. Someone suggests boiling pine needles into tea, which supposedly helps with scurvy. Whatever scurvy is, you nod wisely, as if you know what that is. You don't. The kid with the rock stick has now befriended a frog. They name it Rock, because imagination is in short supply, and everything is named after rocks. The frog is not amused. You head deeper into the woods, past the familiar trails, eyes always scanning. That's when you spot Ithoni. Or rather, the signs of it. A buzzing cloud, A hollow tree. The faint, sweet smell of danger. Someone else sees it too, and lets out a high-pitched yelp of excitement and terror. You both approach slowly. There's no protective gear. No gloves. Just bad decisions and high hopes. You break off a smoke torch from your keyed bundle of herbs wrapped tight and smoldering and wave it toward the hive entrance. The bees scatter in a lazy cloud. You jam a stick inside and twist. Golden gunk drips out like magic. Sticky, fragrant, and probably about to cost you 100 stings. You shove chunks of honeycomb into a bark bowl and bolt like someone just shouted, "Saber-tooth." Oh, back with the group. You show off your prize like a war trophy. Everyone claps. A few bees follow you back for revenge. You're stung twice. Once on the ear. Once on your pride. Worth it. As the sun dips lower, you gather your pouch and start the walk home. Your feet ache. Your back is sore. And your fingers smell like garlic, honey, and bee trauma. But your pouch is full. And your tribe won't go hungry tonight. There's something deeply grounding about this kind of day. It's not dramatic. No heroics. Just quiet observation. Patience. And the weird joy of pulling something edible out of the dirt. In a world where danger lurks behind every rock, it's comforting to spend a day digging under them instead. Back at the cave. People cheer at the sight of your haul. You dump your pouch near the hearth and start sorting. The mushroom is still suspicious. You roast it on a stick and watch it turn blue. Everyone agrees not to eat it. A wise decision. For once, dinner is a strange but surprisingly good stew of roots, herbs, and wild garlic. Someone drops in a chunk of honeycomb, which melts into the broth and makes the whole thing weirdly fancy, like caveman fine dining. There's chewing, there's slurping, there's someone humming again. You lean back. Too full, slightly sticky, and exhausted. The fire crackles. A few people are dozing already. Someone's telling a story about a man who ate nothing but pine bark and became part tree. You close your eyes and wonder what it would be like to never forage again. But then you think about the honey, and the frog named Rock, and the satisfaction of holding something in your hand that you earned with patience and dirt under your fingernails. You smile into the fur blanket. The sun barely peeks over the horizon when you're roused from your sleep by the sound of throat clearing and what might generously be called prehistoric chatter. Someone has already added more wood to the fire, and the glow makes your cave look less like a wolf's den and more like a weirdly smoky living room. It's time to socialize. You'd rather nap on the warm stone ledge for another 2 hours. But in a world with no smartphones, this is what counts as entertainment. Today's plan: bonding, or more specifically, surviving the slightly awkward, often hilarious dance that is early human communication. You shuffle to the fire circle and plop down beside someone who smells strongly of fish and old leather. It's not personnel, it's just biology. Around the flickering light, the tribe is gradually waking up, stretching, grunting, scratching various parts. Not exactly high society, but you're among friends. Or at least people who haven't stabbed you lately. Someone throws a hunk of meat into the coals. It hisses and pops. A baby shrieks from the back of the cave and is promptly handed a shiny pebble to gnaw on. Someone else coughs up something unsettling and waves vaguely toward the horizon. You think that means it's going to be a good day? You try to say, "Good morning." What comes out is more like, but the sentiment lands. A few others grunt back. One guy lets call him Groltrees to tell a joke. You think? He mimics a deer slipping on ice and then falls over. Someone snorts. A joke, probably. Or a very unfortunate memory. You see, words are coming. Slowly. But this is a world where most of what you say is done with your eyebrows, your hands, or throwing a rock at someone's foot. And while linguists debate when exactly structured language developed, you're clearly in the murky in-between. Some sounds mean danger. Others mean food. A special grunt with a head tilt might mean, "Please stop licking the deer bones." We talked about this. Historians still argue whether language started with warning calls or gossip. Some say it evolved from tool-making, where you needed to explain how to flake flint without stabbing yourself. Others think it was all about social cohesion, because knowing who cheated at the last marrow-sharing session is crucial when you're sleeping 3 feet apart. What's clear, though, is that communication is already shaping your group. You notice clique forming. Hunters huddle together, exchanging meaningful glances and dramatic retellings of their near-death experiences. Gatherers gossip softly while plucking burrs from each other's hair. The elders mostly grunt disapprovingly and look like they've been disappointed in humanity since before fire. You and your closest companions trade what passes for stories. Someone pantomimes a dream. They had something about flying over mammoths with glowing eyes. It's absurd. But you nod solemnly. Everyone adds their own twist. And then you fell into a pit of snakes, someone says. Flapping their arms. Laughter erupts. For a moment, it feels like you're sitting around a campfire in a high school theater improv class, just with more fleas. Then, someone starts a game. You're not sure it has rules, but it involves tossing a polished stone between you and trying not to drop it. Every time someone does, they make a weird face and groan dramatically. It's funny, the first 5 times. Then, someone flings it too hard, and it hits Knock in the nose. Bleeding ensues. Game over. This is how your people stay connected. Not through words, but through ritual shared meals, shared jokes, shared trauma involving poorly aimed stones. And in a world where survival depends on trust, that matters more than knowing the word for hypotenuse. And you help patch up Knock's nose using moss and what might be a spider web. Someone claps approvingly. It's unclear whether for the healing or the entertainment. Either way, you take a bow. The rest of the morning is filled with social tasks. You help reinforce the cave's windbreak, dragging dried hides over a gap near the entrance that whistles like a haunted flute every night. Someone else is mending a broken sling using braided sinew and a few well-placed curses. You swap tools, trade stories, and get into a mild argument about whether that squirrel from last week was, in fact, real or just an unusually large rat. The jury is still out. By midday, the tribe gathers for a collective meal. It's part nourishment, part ritual. You sit in a wide circle, passing around bowls of mashed roots, roasted bark, yes, bark, and a watery soup that tastes vaguely of mushroom and regret. But everyone eats. Everyone shares. Even the kid who only ever eats the burnt bits is included. And that's the thing. This is your glue. No rules. No written language. But a system of unspoken agreements. You help. You eat. You joke. You try not to scream when someone uses your fur blanket without asking. A quirky little debate breaks out over a gesture someone made a thumbs up. Or was it, I saw a wolf and ran like a coward? You mimic it. And everyone starts arguing again. Language is still forming. And you're watching it evolve, like an awkward baby mammoth trying to stand for the first time. There's even music now. A guy with an animal bone flute starts tooting out a rhythm. It's awful. It's also catchy. Another person taps a log with sticks. Someone starts clapping their hands. And just like that, your evening turns into the world's first accidental drum circle. A fringe theory suggests early music wasn't about art or fun, it was to scare predators, synchronize group work, or even summon game animals. But tonight, it's just goofy noise. And it works. Even the grumpy elders crack half smiles. As dusk falls, you feel a strange warmth, part fire, part community. These people scruffy, hungry, mildly smelly air, your safety net, your tribe. You can't talk fluently. You can't write poems. But you all know the same rhythms, the same grunts, the same look that means, I swear, if you take my meat again, I will throw a rock. And somehow, that's enough. The cave is louder than usual this morning, not because anyone is arguing, but because there are children everywhere, tiny ones toddling dangerously close to the fire, older ones chasing each other with sticks that absolutely do not qualify as toys, and a few in-between types, trying to copy the adults with comically oversized spears. Today is apparently the unofficial day of the cave children, which means you get to enjoy equal parts chaos, shrieking, and mild existential dread. You're not entirely sure what the plan is, but someone hands you a half-rotted leather strap and points toward the kids, as if to say, go, try not to let them die. You sigh and tighten your cloak. You've hunted mammoths, scraped hides, and made fire from wet moss. But babysitting? That's the real danger. The smallest ones are clustered in the warmest corner of the cave, gnawing on bones and fur scraps. One child is wearing an upside-down tortoise shell as a hat. Another is trying to feed a pebble to a sleeping dog. You gently redirect that one with a grunt and a raised eyebrow. They blink at you like you've just stolen their dreams. It's easy to romanticize early childhood in the Stone Age, running barefoot through meadows, covered in mud, free from the tyranny of homework. But in reality, being a kid in prehistory means one slip near the fire pit and you've got a permanent eyebrow situation. Most children are part apprentice, part liability, and full-time noise machine. Still, they're essential. They carry knowledge. They keep the fire of the tribe going, sometimes literally. Sometimes by setting things on fire that shouldn't be. You lead a small gang of the mid-sized ones too old for naps, too young for spears outside into the brittle sunlight. The air is crisp, the ground hard with frost. Perfect for a training day. You demonstrate how to throw a rock at a tree. It's not elegant. One child immediately hits themselves in the shin. Another flings their stone behind them and nearly clocks a very surprised elder. Progress Still, a few of them get it. You watch as they narrow their eyes, adjust their stance, and let loose with surprising precision. You nod approvingly. These are tomorrow's hunters, or tomorrow's hunters' sidekicks. Either way, they're learning. Historians still argue whether prehistoric children had formal training or just learned by watching and mimicking. The archaeological record is scattered tiny handprints near cave paintings, miniature tools found in dig sites, but it's clear they were active participants. Childhood wasn't a time of play so much as apprenticeship. Play was training. And those rock-throwing contests? Probably also how you sorted out who got first dibs at dinner. You switch to teaching basic foraging. You show them edible roots. Pull out a stinky bulb that smells like onion, if onions were also wet socks. And let them take turns digging. One finds a grub, screams, throws it, hits another child, shows. You sort it out with exaggerated sighs and one stern look. The kids look impressed. You feel like a hero, or a zookeeper. Eventually, things settle. The older children start crafting pretend tools from sticks and bark, mimicking adult movements with surprising detail. One even sharpens a rock using another rock. It's entirely pointless. But they look so serious doing it that you don't dare interrupt. You recall your own half-memories of being this small sitting in someone's lap while they carved bone beads, watching sparks fly from flint and steel, crawling into the firs at night when the wind howled. Childhood in this world is raw and fast. You grow up quickly or not at all. By 10, you're expected to know how to clean a rabbit. By 12, you might be sent to help on a hunt. There's no gap year. There's barely a gap day. And yet, these moments matter. Someone shows a group of children how to twist grass into rope. Someone else teaches a chant that helps remember which berries are deadly and which are just surprisingly tart. Oral tradition is already blooming. No books. No lectures, just songs. Mimicry. And a lot of stern looks. You take a break near a cluster of flat stones and encourage the kids to draw. With sticks and chunks of charcoal, they scratch crude shapes, animals, spirals, weird figures that might be people or might be mushrooms. One draws what is unmistakably a bear with 5 legs and a crown. You ask them what it is. They respond with a shrug and a grunt. You decide it's art. Some fringe theories suggest children were behind some of the earliest cave art, either participating directly or inspiring the adults through their weird and wonderful little minds. Others think cave painting was a serious ritual activity, and kids were strictly excluded. Judging by what you're seeing today, it's hard to imagine the kids staying away from anything involving paint and walls. As the day winds down, the group returns to the cave, tired, but full of the kind of joy that only comes from learning something and falling in a mud puddle. The kids pile into a heap near the hearth, elbowing each other for the best spot. One immediately falls asleep, snoring like a squirrel caught in a drum. You sit nearby, poking the fire, watching the sparks fly upward into the dark. One of the older kids leans against your side, head heavy on your shoulder. You let them stay. You've earned this nap, even if it's someone else's. In this world, childhood is messy, loud, and brief. But it's also sacred. These kids will carry your stories, your skills, Maybe even your jokes, though. Let's be honest. They never land quite right. You close your eyes. Behind you, someone starts humming. In front of you, the fire crackles. And beside you, the future is snoring. The firelight flickers across the cave wall, casting strange, dancing shadows. You sit cross-legged on a flat stone, staring at a smear of red ochre on the limestone surface like it's about to whisper secrets. Tonight isn't about hunting, or foraging, or yelling at kids who poke glowing embers. Tonight is about ardor, whatever the Stone Age equivalent of "hey, look what I made" happens to be. You reach into a shallow bowl of pigment-crushed ochre mixed with fate and smear some across your thumb. The texture is grainy, a little sticky, and smells faintly of smoke and something ancient. You press your hand to the rock and hold still. When you pull away, a perfect crimson silhouette remains. It looks dramatic, bold, like a prehistoric Instagram post. No caption needed. Around you, others are doing the same. A few have carved outlines of bison into the rock, using bits of flint and obsessive persistence. Someone else is adding dots in a pattern no one really understands. But everyone nods, like it's very deep. A child draws a stick figure with a suspiciously large nose. Everyone pretends not to notice. Cave art isn't a casual activity. It's a ritual, a statement, maybe even a performance. You work by torchlight, the walls breathing with fire's rhythm, and your images take shape in half-shadow. The ochre smudges under your fingers. The flint scratches leave faint lines. But together, they form as scene hunters. Animals. Spirals. The curve of a horn. It's both specific and abstract. Like you're recording something, but also inventing it. Historians still argue whether cave paintings were religious, educational, or just prehistoric doodling. Some believe they were maps or records of hunts. Others think they were early forms of storytelling or even shamanic trance visions. A fringe theory posits that these spaces were echo chambers literally that amplified sound and turned art into immersive ritual. You don't know the truth, but you do know that drawing a mammoth rump requires a weirdly steady hand. You pause to examine someone else's workin' elegant series of reindeer, frozen mid-run, antlers sweeping back. The animals almost shimmer in the wavering torchlight. It's strangely moving, like catching a memory before it fades. Then, a familiar sound, a low, rhythmic chant from behind you. You glance over your shoulder. The elders have begun singing a hum that rises and falls, like the wind through tall grass. One of them taps a hollow bone against a stone. Another keeps time by clapping. The whole thing has an odd pull to it, like it's sinking into your bones. You keep painting. The music keeps swelling. And the wall, bit by bit, becomes more alive than the forest outside. Someone passes you a hollow reed filled with pigment. You blow gently, creating a hazy spray around another handprint. This one is smaller, probably from the child who drew the big-nosed stick figure. They beam with pride. You give them a solemn nod, which in caveman body language means that's actually pretty cool. The whole group becomes a chorus of creation, some painting, some carving, some chanting. The firelight dances across the layers of images. You realize, suddenly, that you're surrounded by ghosts, not dead ones. but memories. Each mark on the wall is a moment frozen, a hunt, a celebration, a dream, maybe even a fear, and you're adding your voice to it. Later, when the flames die low and the ash begins to settle, everyone slowly peels away. The cave becomes quiet again. You stay behind a moment longer. Fingers stenen, heart thumping with something that feels oddly like purpose. You press one last handprint beside the others. Just above the drawn reindeer's antler, yours overlaps someone else's. You hope they'd approve. Back at the hearth, the others are wrapped in furs. The elders are passing around a bowl of bitter tea made from bark and something untrustworthy. You take a sip and immediately regret it. But it warms your stomach. And that's worth the flavor of wet charcoal. One of the elders begins telling a story. You've heard it before, a tale of a giant bird that stole fire from the stars and dropped it into a lake. It makes no sense. But everyone listens. Eyes wide. Mouths slack. You suspect the bird is a metaphor. Or possibly dinner. It's hard to tell. This, too, is a kind of art. Not painted on stone, but carved into memory. Stories passed from fire to fire, changing slightly each time. Embellished, warped, loved. No one cares if they're true. They just need to be told. A fringe theory suggests that these stories may have been as vital as foodways of passing on survival knowledge through myth. Like how you should never sleep under the old pine, because that's where the wolves dig dens. Or how the moon disappears for a few nights to avoid the angry sun. Nonsense with a purpose. Eventually, the cave grows quiet again. The fire dims. A few people snore gently. Faces turn toward the walls. You glance back once more. The paintings glow faintly in the amber light. The reindeer runs. The handprints wave. Your mammoth still has the wrong number of legs. But no one's judging. In this world, art doesn't live in museums or galleries. It breathes on the walls of your shelter, beneath your fingertips, inside the crackle of fire and the rhythm of song. It's not separate from life, it is life. And you? You're not just surviving anymore. You're remembering. Morning greets you with the subtle joy of waking up under a stiff, semi-damp fur that smells suspiciously like fish. You stretch, blink the sleep from your eyes, and try to ignore the dull ache in your neck from sleeping against a stone wall. Outside, the sky glows a soft blue-gray, and a bitter wind pokes at the cave entrance like it's trying to pick a fight. Time to get dressed. And by dressed, of course, you mean wrapping yourself in whatever furs aren't already claimed, chewed by rodents, or inexplicably damp. You grab your usual getup, stitched reindeer hide for warmth, a belt of twisted sinew, and what may have once been a very fashionable mammoth skin cape before it got lived in. You tie on your boot-stiff leather pouches stuffed with moss and lined with rabbit fur and hope they'll keep your toes attached through another day. Fashion isn't really the point in the Paleolithic. Survival is. But even so, you can't help but notice one person strutting around with a necklace made of polished teeth and dyed shells, clearly feeling themselves. You give them a nod of respect. You can't hate the hustle. Clothing here isn't just functional. It's full-on DIY. Survival couture. Every stitch of thread comes from sinew or plant fiber. Every button is a carved bone. Every dye, a mix of crushed berries, charcoal, and guesswork. There's no H&M. But there is a woman who's somehow mastered the art of sewing with a bone needle and a look of deep disapproval. You wouldn't mess with her. She's seen things. You sit near the fire and begin repairing a tear in your sleeve from yesterday's accidental bramble wrestling match. With a shard of bone as a needle and a bit of twisted sinew, you start stitching like your life depends on it. Because, let's be honest, it probably does. One cold wind through a ripped seam, and your arm goes from useful to frostbitten decoration. Historians still debate just how early complex clothing developed. Some believe early Homo sapiens wore loosely draped hides, while others point to archaeological finds suggesting tailored garments complete with seams and fasteners existed tens of thousands of years ago. A few fringe ideas suggest clothes were also symbolic, worn during rituals or used to signal status, age, or group identity, like a prehistoric prom dress. But with more deer hair, you reach for your good cloak, the one without hole sand, shake it out. A beetle falls from the lining and skitters off. You pretend that didn't happen. As you pull it around your shoulders, you're struck again by how much work goes into just staying warm. Fire helps, but fire doesn't chase you through snowstorms. Clothes do, or rather, they try. You help a younger girl mend her hood, which has half detached from the collar. Her fingers are numb. Her face red from cold. You show her how to thread the sinew, how to knot it just right. She watches with wide eyes, then tries it herself. The knot she makes could be considered avant-garde. Still, it holds. You smile. She beams like she just invented weaving. There's no mirror here. Of course, just a reflective patch of still water near the cave wall, where you occasionally glimpse your face, dirt, smudged, wild-haired, eyes sharp from months of squinting at the horizon. You look like someone who's halfway between a forest witch and a slightly confused goat. Which, honestly, isn't far off. You notice someone nearby rubbing their hands with a greasy paste made of fat and crushed herbs. Skincare. Prehistoric edition. Not glamorous, but necessary. Your hands crack open in the cold if you don't keep them oiled. You join them, smearing a bit on your own palms. It smells like garlic and regret. But at least you won't bleed all over your tools again. Another person walks by with their face smeared in white clay. You assume it's for warmth or bug repellent. But let's be realit. Might also be just because it looks cool. There's a strong chance some of the earliest fashion trends were just someone saying, "Hey, what if I put mud on my head?" And everyone else going, "Nice." Oh. One guy has a bone comb and is attempting to tame his beard. He's losing. The beard is winning. But the effort is appreciated. You and a few others begin working on a new pair of shoes for the smallest member of the Tribia child who keeps losing theirs in the snow, and somehow always ends up with blue toes and a cheerful grin. You stitch together scraps of squirrel hide, don't ask how many squirrels, and line them with moss. Someone adds a tiny bead from a broken necklace. It's functional. Sure. But it's also a little gift. A little flair. Even in this harsh world, you make room for kindness. Later in the day, while warming your clothes by the fire, and you overhear a conversation grunts and gestures about who has the best winter hood, It devolves into a full-on modeling walk from one of the elders, who struts past the hearth in a patched-up cloak with feathers stitched along the hem. Everyone claps, even the stoic ones. You're not sure if it's satire or celebration, but it's glorious. A fringe theory claims some Paleolithic people used clothes not only to stay warm, but to intimidate enemies or charm potential mates. Bright colors, exotic materials, maybe even early perfumes made from crushed herbs and desperation were all part of the toolkit. You wonder if someone ever showed up on a date wearing an entire raccoon. Probably. As night falls, you shed your outer layers and hang them near the fire to dry. They steam gently, the scent of smoke and wild animal soaking into the hide. You wrap yourself in a sleeping furon that, hopefully, hasn't been claimed by Lysand. Settle into your usual spot. The child with the new squirrel boots wiggles their toes proudly. You grin. Their feet will stay warm tonight. Yours might even do the same. If you don't kick off your moss-stuffed socks in your sleep again. In the end, your wardrobe might be simple furs, bones, sinew, mudbutt. Every piece tells a story of effort, of survival, of a time when staying warm was an achievement worth celebrating around the fire. The wind howls outside the cave like it's auditioning for a horror story. But inside, the fire pops and crackles, throwing shadows against the stone walls like dancing ghosts. Tonight, there's no hunting, no foraging, no spear-flinging toddler sprints. Tonight, everyone's gathered around the fire, shoulder to shoulder, knees practically in the ashes. Because this isn't just warmth, it's the heart of the tribe. The group chat of the prehistoric world. You stretch out your legs, tuck your hands under your armpits for warmth, and let your eyes wander around the flickering circle. Someone's feeding twigs into the fire one at a time, probably trying to make it dramatic. Someone else is carving a stick just because they like the sound. You're waiting for the stories to start, and they do. Slowly, an elder begins with a low hum, deep, rhythmic, wordless. The rest of the group quiets. You lean in. The humming shifts to murmuring, and then to real words, or something close enough. Names of animals, names of ancestors, half-truths about the sky. The stories always start this way, like songs being remembered one syllable at a time. The fire crackles. Sparks pop upward into the dark, like tiny stars trying to escape. The elder's voice rises. Their hands move. They describe a time when the rivers ran backwards, when a hunter speared the moon and got cursed with owl eyes. It makes no sense, and you love every second of it. The little ones lean forward, mouths open. One mimics the owl noise. Someone shushes them. Someone else giggles. You've heard this one before, and it changes every time. Sometimes the moon cries. Sometimes it turns into a fish. Sometimes the hunter becomes a tree. The details don't matter. The fire shapes the story, and the story shapes the tribe. Historians still argue whether these fireside gatherings were primarily for entertainment, spiritual practice, or education. Some believe they were the Stone Age version of school, where crucial knowledge like how not to die from eating glowing mushrooms was passed on through vivid storytelling. Others suggest the stories were mythic glue, uniting people with shared symbols. even if nobody really knew what they meant. Tonight, the myth is a long one. The elder's voice drops into a whisper as they talk about the beast with 3 mouths who lived under the ice. It came out only during the dark moon, devouring hunters who spoke its name. You cross your arms and resist the urge to glance toward the cave entrance. A fringe theory claims some of these stories were based on real animals, maybe a saber-toothed cat mistaken for a demon, or a mammoth half-glimpsed through a snowstorm. Over time, claws became curses, and memory became myth. Makes sense. You've seen enough weird tracks in the snow to believe that anything could be out there. When the story ends, everyone sits in silence for a beat too long, like the cave is holding its breath. Then the mood lifts. A child shouts, "Tell the one about the sky deer." The group laughs. Even the grumpy old hunter chuckles. The elder groans she's told that one 100 times, but he starts anyway, voice rising with dramatic flair. This story is sillier. It involves a deer that could fly, lived in the clouds, and pooped glowing berries. The kids love it. You pretend to roll your eyes, but secretly enjoy it. You used to believe in the sky deer. Sometimes, when you're out gathering alone, you still glance up, just in case. The fire dims slightly. Someone pokes at it, adding a chunk of pitchy wood that sends up a smoke spiral. The shadows deepen. A few people doze off, leaning against walls or furs. One man is humming a tune with no words, just a rise and fall that's older than language. You're not quite ready to sleep, though. You watch the flames lick the wood, bright orange around the edges, soft blue in the center. The heat makes your cheeks sting. Your mind wanders. You think about how many fires have burned like this, in caves like this, across thousands of years. Different hands, different faces, but the same crackling logs, the same smoky air, the same stories being passed down by firelight, reshaped each time, like warm clay in someone's palms. Someone beside you starts mimicking shadow animals on the wall. A bison, a dog, a very questionable mammoth that looks more like a potato. You snort. They try again. It's worse. Now, it's a potato with legs. Still. You clap politely. The kid who was humming earlier crawls into their sleeping fur, still softly singing. You wonder if they'll grow up to be a storyteller too, or a spear maker, or that one person who always knows where to find good mushrooms that don't make your spirit leave your body. Before turning in, someone says a few words to the fire. Not quite a prayer, more like a thank you, for warmth, for stories, for the simple fact that today didn't end with anyone being eaten. A small win. A fringe belief among some early groups, it said, was that fire had a soul, a kind of spirit that needed feeding and respect. You think about that as you lay back, the orange light painting your eyelids. You can feel its warmth, hear it sighing. It does feel alive. As your eyes start to close, you hear one last whisper from the elder. The fire remembers. Maybe it does. And maybe, just maybe, it's remembering you too. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking up because it's to the charming sound of a loud snort, a foot in your ribs, and a cold draft that snakes its way up your spine like it's late for something. You peel open your eyes to find the fire's nothing but a sulking heap of orange coals. Your tongue is dry. Your neck is sore. And your leg is tangled in someone else's questionable-smelling fur. You sigh. Untangle yourself. And sit up. Joints popping like twigs underfoot. It's dark. Not cozy dark. Not nap dark. It's the kind of dark that makes you question whether your eyes are open at all. The mouth of the cave is just a black rectangle beyond the flickering ash. Somewhere outside. Wind howls low through the trees. It sounds like something big is sighing. Or waiting. Tonight, you're on watch. It's a job that rotates. Mostly because no one wants it more than once every 5 days. You grab your usual torch, a knotted branch, dipped in grease and wrapped in moss, and relight it from the embers. The flame flares up with a sizzle and a puff of smoke that makes your eyes sting and your nose reconsider its life choices. You settle near the cave mouth, cloaked in layers of fur that don't do nearly enough. Cold air licks at your cheeks. You pull your hood lower and grip your trusty spear, sharp stick 4. It's not your best spear, but it has history. You once used it to scare off a bear, or a really large, angry raccoon. The details are fuzzy. Outside, the forest stretches into nothing. Branches creak. Snow crunches under its own weight. And somewhere, faintly, the low, mournful call of an owl. You try to convince yourself that's comforting. Watching the dark isn't just a duty, it's a ritual. It's when your mind wanders into the corners of fear you don't examine during daylight. The stories come back. The ones about beasts with no faces. About people who followed strange lights into the woods and never returned. You shake your head. No room for that. You hum softly to yourself. Instead, a slow tune your mother used to murmur when you were little. It helps. A bit. A fringe theory suggests that these solitary night vigils were where human imagination truly evolved, when minds untethered from daytime tasks began weaving stars into stories and shadows into monsters. Makes sense. It's hard not to imagine things when every rustle might be claws. You peer into the trees again. Still quiet. You think about how many nights your ancestors must have spent exactly like this, curled up by entrances. Weapons clutched, trying to hear what wasn't there. Then, a sound, a soft crunch. You go still. There it is again. Closer this time. Something moving. Slow and deliberate. Your grip tightens. You raise your torch, and light spills across the snow. A pair of yellow glints flash back at you. Eyes. Not large, but low. A wolf. Thin. Wary. Alone. It stares at you for a beat, weighing its odds. Then it snorts and disappears into the dark like it was never there. Your breath comes back all at once. Shaky and loud. Back near the cave. The fire's picked up a bit. Someone stirred in their sleep and threw on more wood. You glance behind you. The rest of the tribe is still a mess of furs and limbs. Breathing slow. Safe. You sit again. Heart slowing. The cold seeps in through your boots. You wiggle your toes and focus on the stars. They're out in full, tonight bright. Endless. Indifferent. You trace patterns with your eyes. The crooked line, your people call the sky elk, the small cluster that someone once said was a warrior's fallen teeth. Nonsense. Probably, but it's your nonsense. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people assigned meaning to the stars, whether they charted seasons or hunted gods across constellations. You think it doesn't matter. Even if you don't know their names, the stars are still company. Eventually, the dark begins to thin. Not light yet, but softer. The trees fade from silhouettes to shapes. A few birds call out from deep branches. The worst of the night is over. You check the perimeter one more time. Just frost. And silence. Back inside. The fire crackles with renewed life. Someone sitting up now, rubbing their eyes and yawning like a dying walrus. Another reaches for a pouch of dried berries and immediately drops them all over the floor. You smile. The world didn't end while they slept. You report nothing unusual. A shrug. A quiet nod. That's all. No need to share the wolf or the moment of fear. This night was just another thread in the long fabric of survival. And still, as you eat a bit of salted root and stretch your fingers toward the flame, you wonder how many other nights, other fires. Other watchers came before you. How many eyes stared into the dark, afraid to blink? How many saw something watching back? You roll your shoulders and stand, stretching stiff limbs as the sky shifts from silver to pale blue. The air bites your skin, but at least it smells clenpine and old snow and a faint trace of last night's smoke. The others are waking up now. Slowly, like crusty bears coming out of bad dreams. Someone groans. Someone else sneezes like a thunderclap. And soon, the cave is alive with sleepy motion. The youngest child tumbles out of a pile of furs, hair sticking out in every direction, blinking at the world like it personally offended them. Their mother scoops them up, murmuring something soft. Breakfast is basic bits of dried meat. Last night's stew scraped from the side of a pot, and whatever someone forgot, they'd tucked into a bark pouch. You chew quietly, staring into the fire. It's strange how fast the fear of night melts into routine. 1 minute, you're gripping a spear, heart pounding. The next, you're listening to someone argue over whose turn it is to fetch water. Life doesn't pause, even in this hard, hungry place. The rhythm pushes on. You step outside to relieve yourself behind a particular boulder eyes. That boulder, the one unofficially claimed as the bathroom spot, and catch sight of a herd of distant deer moving across the ridgeline. You pose. Watch them go. Their legs like shadows against the snow. They're headed south, into the wind. Maybe that means something. Back at the cave. Plans are forming. Tools are checked. Packs are tied. The day begins again, as it always does. Tired, cold, uncertain, but still alive. You're chewing on a piece of cold root and trying not to think too hard about its suspicious rubbery texture when someone gives you a look. The kind of look that says, "Congratulations. It's your turn to deal with romance today." You sigh, wipe your hands on your tunic, and shuffle toward the cave entrance. The tribe's version of a love story isn't flowers and music, it's meat gifts, awkward grunts, and an unspoken agreement not to steal each other's sleeping furs. Courtship among your people is a slow, complicated dance that mostly involves pretending not to care. You know how it goes. You casually offer someone the better piece of roasted squirrel. You sharpen their tools without being asked. Maybe you pluck a few nice feathers off a dead bird and braid them into their belt. It's subtle, primitive, flirting at its finest. Today, there's a buzz in the air. Two people are circling each other near the edge of the clearing growl. Who can throw a spear so hard it whistles? And Lena, who once stared down a bear and didn't blink. They're pretending not to notice each other while standing 5 feet apart, adjusting the same fire pit for the 3rd time. Someone coughs theatrically. You and the others pretend to be fascinated by the dirt. Grohl finally breaks. He offers Lena a strip of smoked meat from his own pouch. Bold move. That's prime food real estate. She accepts it with all the ceremony of a queen, blessing her favorite warrior. There's an exchange of glances. A grunt that probably means, "Not bad." And just like that, the whole tribe silently agrees. They're now a pair. Historians still argue whether early humans had long-term monogamous relationships or more fluid, group-based structures. Some evidence suggests pair bonding, while other interpretations lean toward more communal child-rearing. Either way, your tribe has its own unspoken rules. And once Grohl and Lena start sharing a hearth, their status is locked in like a mammoth bone in winter mud. They're not the only budding couple either. Elsewhere in the camp, someone's weaving beads into a hair braid, a time-consuming task that no one does, unless they're very interested or very bored. You glance at your own hair, which looks like a nest a bird gave up on, and decide, maybe it's time for a makeover. Of course, mating isn't just about gifts and hairstyles. It's about proving you won't drop your newborn into a stream or accidentally poison dinner. That means there are small tests like how you cook, how you track, how you handle getting a splinter without yelping too loudly. All of these things factor into attraction. Romance, in this timeline, is built on competence. You think about your own past. There was that one time you tried to woo someone with a very lumpy squirrel stew. They politely said it tasted interesting, then gave their leftover marrow to someone else. That one stung. But you learned. These days, you just show affection, the old-fashioned way, offering the good spot by the fire and not hogging the last bone. There's a tradition here. Subtle but sacred. When two people truly bond, they carve a mark together into the stone wall. Not a name. Exactly. Since writing's still a few thousand years off. But a shape, a line, a shared symbol. It stays there, tucked between the mammoths and antelope. A quiet little vow carved into the world. A fringe theory suggests these markings are the earliest expressions of symbolic love visual codes that meant, we're together. We made it through winter. Or even, stop flirting with my fire mate. It's impossible to say for sure. But when you pass by those faded scratches, you feel their presence. A trace of tenderness in a world built on survival. Later, as the sun dips low, the tribe begins its nightly rituals. Food, fire, talk. You notice Grohl and Lena sitting closer together, their shoulders brushing now and then. No one teases. No one points. There's a quiet respect for love here. However it's shown, in a world where death is always waiting in the underbrush, tenderness becomes a kind of rebellion. You help pass around dinner, mostly roots and strips of dried fish, and You watch the younger members of the group mimic what they've seen. One boy offers his stew bowl to a girl with a dramatic flourish. She dumps half of it back into his lap. He's delighted. You smile. The elders sometimes tell stories about the great love pairings of the past hunters who crossed mountains for each other. Gatherers who sang songs so sweet that the sun lingered longer. Exaggerated? Probably. But isn't that what stories are for? As the fire dims and the stars return, you find yourself tracing small shapes in the dirt with a stick. Circles. Spirals. 2. Interlocking handprints. Nothing fancy. Just little symbols of a feeling that's older than language. Behind you, someone starts humming. That same tune from nights before. Maybe it's a love song. Maybe it's just a memory. But in this moment, wrapped in fur and firelight, surrounded by people who've all chosen despite the cold, the hunger, the Wolvesto stay together. It feels like enough. You lean back against the stone wall. Close your eyes and let the warmth and laughter drift around you. Another day done. Another night survived. And in the flickering orange light, something as old as the stars pulses gently, stubbornly. Inside your chest, you don't mean to sneeze into your hands right after waking up. But it happens. Loud, wet, and echoing like thunder off the cave walls. You sit up slowly, head swimming, and realize your nose is running like a leaky wineskin. Your joints ache. Your throat's raw, and the firelight suddenly feels a little too bright. Fantastic. You're sick. And in the Stone Age, that's not just an inconvenience. It's a full-blown crisis. You groan and shuffle toward the fire, where a few others are already gathered, hunched and groggy. Someone hands you a cup carved from hollowed wood, filled with something warm and suspiciously green. You sip. It tastes like boiled moss and sadness. You thank them anyway. Illness in your tribe spreads fast and hits hard. You've seen it before. A single cough becomes 5. A rash creeps across a whole family. And before long, the elders are muttering and smearing herbs on everything like the cave itself might be infected. There's no doctor. No thermometer. No prescription. There's just the shaman and a whole lot of optimism. Today, the shaman Tari is already at work, crouched over a bubbling clay bowl, tossing in handfuls of dried roots and whispering things that sound like curses, but might just be complaints. Tari is equal parts respected and avoided. They wear a cloak of stitched bird feathers and once tried to extract a spirit from someone's elbow using a stick and loud chanting. It didn't work, but the elbow did stop hurting. You shuffle over and hold up your hand. Tari squints at you, reaches into a pouch, and smacks something wet and slimy into your palm. It's warm, and, moving slightly, you stare. Tari says nothing, just nods solemnly. You nod back like you understand. You absolutely don't. Historians still argue whether early shamans were healers, spiritual leaders, or just the most confident people in the group with access to all the weird mushrooms. What's clear is that they played a critical role guiding rituals, interpreting dreams, and handling the strange business of being human when the body turns traitor. You take the slimy object and, following Tari's vaga gestures, mash it against your forehead. It smells like garlic left in a swamp. You leave it there for the symbolism. Elsewhere in the cave. More coughs. One of the children has a mild fever. Her mother rocks her gently, singing a low, nasal melody that seems to settle her. Someone else is grinding bark into powder and mixing it into hot water. The whole place smells like pine, smoke, and wet fur. You think back to that time last winter when half the group got sick from eating a bad batch of fermented tubers. There were dreams. There was vomiting. There was a very unfortunate incident involving hallucinated mammoths in the food pile. That was the day Tari declared a new rule. No more tuber stew after the solstice. Everyone agreed, even if no one really knew what a solstice was. A fringe theory suggests early humans learned much of their medicinal knowledge from watching animals like deer licking certain minerals, or primates eating bitter leaves when ill. You've definitely seen a dog chew bark after eating something it regretted. Whether it helped or not, you're not sure. But tonight, you consider eating a small piece of charcoal, just to see what happens. Someone adds more logs to the fire. It flares brightly, and you bask in the warmth. Your head's still swimming, but your fingers feel a bit less frozen. One of the elders leans close and offers you a drink from a gourd. It's bitter, smoky, and hits the back of your throat like a stone slab. You blink rapidly. She pats your arm and smiles. You cough for 3 full minutes, but you feel slightly better after. You look around at your tribe huddled, sniffly, wrapped in every fur available, but still talking, still laughing, still alive. The fire crackles as someone stirs the cooking pot with a stick longer than your leg. A few people have tied herbs around their wrists. Others wear bone charms, supposedly to ward off bad spirits. You have one two-and-old shell on a string. You don't believe in it, except when you do. As the day drags on, you doze off a few times, leaning against the wall, wrapped in a fur that smells comfortingly like smoke and squirrel. Your dreams are strange. A fox speaking in riddles. A tree that cries. Your own hand turning into a fish. When you wake, you jot them into the dirt with a stick, not because they make sense, but because they feel important. Tari sees you and nods again. Apparently, that means the spirits are pleased, or that you're still contagious. Hard to tell with Tari. As evening settles, someone makes a thick stew roots, herbs, a handful of mushrooms you hope were properly tested. You sip slowly, letting the warmth soothe your throat. You notice someone else across the fire sneezing into their elbow. Great. The circle continues. You think about how fragile the human body really is. One bad cough. One infected cut. One fever too strong. And suddenly, the tribe is planning a funeral. There's no safety net here. Just care. Just effort. Just hope. But there's something beautiful in that. 2. When you're sick, someone always brings you water. When you cough, someone sits closer. You're never alone in your misery. You're surrounded, not by medicine, but by people who want you to survive. You lean back, spoon clutched loosely, and watch the fire climb the cave walls. Smoke swirls, laughter hums, and the sickness, while still there, feels a little smaller. Tomorrow, you might feel better, or worse. But tonight, you are warm, fed, and not forgotten. And sometimes, that's the best medicine there is. You're packing. Again. Which really just means gathering the same handful of possessions, your favorite flint knife, your smoke-scented cloak, the pouch of dried meat you swear keeps getting smaller, and stuffing them into a fur wrap. It's migration day. You don't need to be told. You can feel it in the air. The reindeer have moved on. And if you want to eat next month, so do you. Around you, the tribe is bustling in that particular kind of early morning chaos, where everyone is moving quickly, but no one knows where anything is. Someone's lost a boot. Someone else is insisting that they just saw the cooking stone 10 minutes ago. A toddler is dragging a basket twice their size in the wrong direction. You tie your pack with a grunt and go looking for your water skin, which you cleverly left hanging on a tree branch for reasons that now escape you. The cave that's been home for the past season is already half emptied. The hearth is cold. The bones and ash swept into a pile by the entrance. No one cries. But the air feels thick. You've lived here long enough to paint a mammoth on the wall and to memorize the way wind sounds when it squeezes through the rear crevice. But seasons shift. Food moves. You follow. Migration isn't new. Your people have done it since before there was a word for done. The mammoths, the reindeer, even the fat little rodents that pop out of snowbanks like angry bread loaves, all of them move with the seasons. And so do you? It's less choosing and more, try staying and see what starves first. Historians still argue whether migration patterns were instinctual or carefully planned. Some say the tribe followed animal tracks in memory. Others believe they used celestial markers or even bone calendars scratched with notches to track time. You have no idea what a calendar is. But you do remember where the sun was when the berries bloomed. That's enough. Tari, the shaman, is pacing along the tree line, scattering crushed leaves and muttering. Ritual goodbye, or just checking for bad mushrooms? No one knows. And no one asks. That's the Tari protocol. The group sets off mid-morning. You hoist your pack. Take a last glance at the cave still, echoing with soot and memory, and trudge into the snow. Your breath fogs in front of you, mingling with the others. The line of people, animals, and supplies stretches behind you like a snake made of fur and bone. The terrain is uneven. Ice crusts the earth in brittle plates. Your boots crunch with every step. And occasionally you slip on something embarrassing and have to pretend it was on purpose. A few others aren't so lucky. One guy falls face first into a slush puddle. You help him up while pretending not to laugh. He thanks you by handing you a cold, squishy root. Friendship is weird. You walk for hours. Hills roll past. Trees groan in the wind. Every now and then, someone whistles a short tuneth, kind meant to keep bears away and morale just barely above zero. You hum along. Midway through the day, the tribe pauses at a small clearing. Fires are lit. Food is shared. Your legs are already threatening rebellion. But you stretch them out and chew on some roasted whatever it was. Across the fire, two people are arguing about whether this is the valley where Nock saw the herd last spring or the one where Grohl fell in a hole and almost lost his pants. Important distinction. You smile. There's something cozy about this group. Even when the cold is biting and the wind keeps threatening to eat your ears. You all know what's coming. A new camp. A new shelter. Maybe a new cave. New bones to leave behind. You remember your first migration being much younger. Frightened by the sheer size of the world. You'd clung to your mother's cloak and stared at the horizon. Convinced there was a monster just over every ridge. You were only wrong half the time. Now, you're one of the ones others follow. People watch where you walk. They trust your silence. Your gaze. You didn't ask for that. But it settled around you like an old cloak-heavy but warm. After the break, the group presses on. The sky grays. Snowflakes start to drift down. Light at first. Then thicker. You pull your hood tighter. Visibility drops. But the group stays close. You follow the path of broken grass. Of boot prints stamped into frozen dirt. Even the dogs. If you can call those scruffy barkhounds dogs. Seem tense. Suddenly, the person ahead stops. You nearly walk into them. Whispers ripple through the line. You nudge your way forward. There it is, the new cave. A yawning mouth in the side of a rock bluff, half hidden by fir trees. It's smaller than the last one, but dry, protected. There are signs other people may have used it, before a circle of old stones near the entrance. Soot on the ceiling. You feel the ancient tension rise. Will there be bones, carvings, spirits still lingering? Someone tosses a stick inside. No growls. No ghosts. Probably. The tribe begins setting up. Fires rekindled. Packs opened. Blankets unrolled. The cave slowly transforms from cold stone to tentative home. You pick a spot near the back, under a low shelf that'll shield your head from drips. Someone hands you a stone to help weigh down the fire cloth. You nod. Thanks. There's no celebration. Just relief. Just the slow exhale of people who've walked all day and found shelter before nightfall. The wind howls outside. But inside, it's warm. A fringe theory suggests that migration wasn't just about survival, it was a spiritual act. A way to honor the earth by never claiming too much from one place. You're not sure about that. But you do know this. When you sit down on your fur roll and feel the cave stone firm beneath you, it feels like arrival. Like continuity. You stretch out your legs. Across the fire, someone is already snoring. You smile. Another day survived. Another home found. And tomorrow, the drawings begin again. You wake to the sharp crackle of a fire and the unmistakable sound of someone sneezing so violently they knock over a bowl. Welcome to your new home. The cave smells like fresh smoke, damp moss, and the lingering tang of nervous sweat. You sit up slowly, the cold stone under your hip reminding you that furs only soften things so much. Overhead, the rock ceiling stretches like the inside of a beast's mouth, black with soot and faintly glittering with embedded quartz. You stretch, roll your shoulders, and step outside into a morning so bright it makes your eyeballs wince. The snow has crusted over in the night, shining like glass. The trees drip slowly, branches shedding the previous day's storm in heavy globs. Everything's quiet except for the shifting, creaking groan of a landscape just barely holding itself together. It's a good day for death. Not yours. Hopefully, someone else's. You follow a short path along the bluff to a shallow depression in the ground, already surrounded by figures in cloaks. At the center lies a body, carefully wrapped in fur, a polished antler placed across its chest. It's Rakutha Quiet One, with the crooked smile and a habit of humming while skinning fish. They'd been coughing for days, but no one expected this. One last breath in the night. And then, silence. No one cries. Not in the wailing, tear-streaked way. Here, grief is a stiff jaw and a lowered head. You stand with the others, the cold biting at your feet, and listen as Tari steps forward. The shaman holds a bundle of feathers in one hand and a carved bone in the other. They chant, slow and low, in a rhythm that seems to vibrate inside your chest. The tribe gathers around the body. One by one, people step forward and place something by Raku's side. A flint scraper, a length of sinew, a smooth stone. You find a little shell in your poshone. Raku once joked, looked like a bison's buttoned. Lay it gently near their shoulder. It's not much, but it's something. Burial here isn't just custom. It's conversation. You're speaking to the dirt, to the sky, to whoever or whatever listens when breath stops. Some believe the dead watch from the stars. Others think they join the animals in the forest. One person once claimed the spirits sleep inside rocks, waiting for dreams to wake them. You don't know what's true, but when you look at Raku's face peaceful, still, you know they're somewhere. Historians still debate the origins of burial rites. Evidence of deliberate graves stretches back tens of thousands of years, bodies laid carefully, often with objects that held meaning. Some argue this marks the birth of human spirituality, the first flickers of belief in something beyond. Others suggest it was more practical, keeping scavengers away, easing the grief of those left behind. Either way, the meaning endures. Tari draws symbols in the dirt with a stick. Spirals, dots, a shape that might be a hand, or a flame. The tribe repeats the chant, now everyone's voice, low and steady. The body is slowly lowered into a shallow pit, lined with pine boughs and stones. Earth is pushed over, gently, with palms and flat stones. No one hurries. No one speaks. When the work is done, the group steps back. A large stone is placed at the head of the grave. Not marked, not named, but known. You linger as the others drift back toward the cave. The snow glints around the mound. Untouched, you crouch beside it. Trace a finger through the fresh dirt. You remember Raku helping you sharpen your spear. The time they saved your fur cloak from blowing into the fire. The way they always found mushrooms, even when no one else could. Death here doesn't come with trumpets or funerals in black suits. It comes quietly, and it stays, but it also leaves room for memory. You walk slowly back to camp. Inside the cave, things are already shifting back to normal. Someone is boiling broth. Another is stitching a torn boot. Grief has no time slot here. It walks beside you as you sharpen blades and stir stew. You don't forget, but you move. A child asks why Raku is sleeping outside now. Their mother gives a long answer about the stars. The child nods solemnly, then goes back to chewing on a stick. You spend the afternoon with a few others building a windbreak near the cave's entrance. It's cold. thankless work dragging pine branches, stacking stones, but it helps, and working keeps the ache quieter. That strange hollow space where Raku's voice used to be fades behind the rhythm of your body moving way. Later, someone starts singing. A slow tune. Barely a whisper. It winds through the cave, tugging at your thoughts. You hum along. Not because you feel joyful, but because the song knows your sorrow too. A fringe theory among anthropologists claims early burial sites weren't just about death, but were centers of memory, anchors for story and place, that people return to them. Whispered names. Cavemen nearby. You like that idea? That remembering isn't just an act, it's a place you can visit, even if only with your feet. As night falls, the fire burns brighter than usual. You sit close, not speaking, just watching the flames. Across the glow, someone scratches new shapes into the walla spiral. A fish, a figure with arms outstretched, a tribute. Maybe you wrap your cloak tighter and lie back, staring at the roof above. Raku's gone, but also not. They're in the chant, in the tools they shaped, in the warmth of the fire they helped build. The cave sighs. The tribe sleeps, and outside, the snow drifts quietly over the grave, like a blanket from the sky. You're poking at the fire with a stick when you realize no one can agree on what to call the object you're holding. One person grunts, "The." Another insists it's "ga." You say nothing, but in your head, it's always just been a stick. It's not a fight, exactly, more like a low-stakes, early morning linguistic crisis, and it ends with someone throwing up their hands and muttering a new sound altogether. Welcome to the dawn of language, where every conversation is a group project with no supervisor. Today's about communication, or at least trying to make sense of how your people trade more than just fish and furs. You watch as two hunters attempt to describe where a reindeer herd was last seen, using only their hands and two slightly panicked-looking facial expressions. You can't tell if they're talking about a valley, a river, or possibly the sky falling. The group eventually gathers to decide whether to follow the supposed herd. Someone scratches a map in the dirt. It's mostly spirals and dots. Someone else draws a very enthusiastic deer that looks more like a potato with legs. Still, somehow, everyone nods in agreement. Language here is not clean and tidy. It sounds, gestures, squints, and sighs. A shoulder shrug can mean, maybe, I don't know, or I saw something horrible, but I'm not ready to talk about it. Context is everything. So is tone. One poorly timed grunt, and you've accidentally declared war or worse. Claimed someone's sleeping fur. Historians still argue whether early humans developed language gradually from tool-making gestures, or suddenly, like a cognitive spark that turned noise into poetry. Some lean toward a slow evolution, sound by sound, gesture by gesture, need by growing need. Others suggest something more dramatic, a neurological shift, a kind of vocal revolution. Either way, you're somewhere in the messy middle. And yet, you manage. Conversations happen. Sort of. You get jokes. You understand warnings. You've even shared a story or usually acted out with elaborate arm flails and one unfortunate impression of a dying bison. People laughed. Mostly, later in the morning. You sit beside a few others. Watching as a child repeats a simple phrase while tapping a stick to rhythm. The repetition becomes almost hypnotic. Hala, hala, hala. Over and over. You notice others joining in, adding sounds, creating a sort of chant. It's not quite a song, but it's close. There's a theory, half-whispered by firelight, that every tribe has a root tongue, a base collection of sounds from which all others bloom. Your people guard yours carefully. There are sounds meant only for rituals, words only the elders use. Some are never spoken above a whisper. Language here is more than communication. It's identity. You help an elder shape a new word for a cave you've never seen before. The sound they use is soft at first, but when repeated, gains weight. You try it. Murrah. It rolls like water down stone. It means more than just cave. It means that particular cave, with the curved ceiling and the echo that makes everyone sound taller. It's a name rooted in memory. You test other sounds clicks, snaps, hums. Some feel wrong. Others make people look up in recognition. It's not about correctness. It's about consensus. If everyone agrees Gronk means don't eat that plant again, then Gronk might just save your life. A few of the younger ones have taken to naming everything: the rocks they sit on, the wind, a specific tree that looks like a person hunched over. You chuckle as one proudly declares a new term for snow. Oh. It's mostly a frustrated exhale, but somehow perfect. That afternoon, a hunter returns with urgent news. A stranger has been spotted someone alone, near the riverbank. Not from your tribe. The message spreads quickly, carried more by gesture than words. Hands flick toward the horizon. Brows furrow. Feet shuffle. You all understand. Strangers mean risk. They also mean new words, new questions, new dangers. Everyone becomes quieter. Even the fire seems to lower its voice. The elders gather. There's a short, sharp discussion. Words you don't fully grasp. A few glances your way. Finally, Tari nods, and you're chosen to go with a small group to investigate. You set out with 3 others. Silent but alert. No one says much. You don't have to. The crack of a branch. A lifted chin. A pointed finger. This is your language now. Every step is a sentence. Every breath is a question. Are they close? Are they watching? Are they afraid? You find the stranger near twilight. Not hiding. Sitting openly beside a stream. Sharpening a stone knife. Their hair is woven in patterns you've never seen. Their cloak is stitched with small shells. They look up. You freeze. So do they? No one speaks. Then, slowly, they raise one hand. You do the same. The tension shifts. Not gone, but balanced. One of your group steps forward, holding out a piece of dried meat. The stranger hesitates, then accepts. They point to themselves and make a sound. Nita. A name. Maybe. You repeat it. They nod. You offer your name. You? The stranger frowns. You realize that won't make sense, so you offer another your fire name. the one your tribe uses when they're being formal. Their expression softens. You don't say much else. Just share the fire. Trade a few objects. Sit in mutual silence. But it's communication. A handshake without hands. An agreement made in glances and food. On the way back to camp, no one speaks. But you feel something new humming in your chest. A wordless understanding. Language doesn't always need sound. That night, you sit beside the fire, listening as others argue over whether Nita meant friend or hungry. You just smile, because you know. Sometimes, meaning is the quiet between words. You're halfway through skinning a rabbit when something small and furry barrels into your leg. At first, you think it's one of the tribe's scrappy children in full chaos mode. But no, it's a dog. Or something like a dog. It's shaggy, panting, wide-eyed, and covered in a mix of burrs and personality. You freeze. So does it? Then, it does something strange. It flops onto its back and wags its tail. Well, that escalated adorably. Your people don't really own animals. You hunt them. You avoid the ones with too many teeth. And sometimes you eat the weird ones just to see if you shouldn't have. But this little thing, it's different. It followed you back from the river camp days ago. And now, it seems to have decided that you are its person. You lean down and scratch behind its ears. It thumps its leg against the dirt like you're casting some kind of magical spell. Someone nearby chuckles. You pretend not to enjoy it as much as you do. No one really knows when wolves became dogs. Historians still argue over whether early humans actively tamed wolves, selectively breeding the least bitey ones, or whether a few bold pups just hung around campfires long enough to earn snacks and a name. A fringe theory suggests humans didn't domesticate dogs at all, that dogs domesticated us. Using those big round eyes and dopey grins to sneak into our hearts and food supplies, you name the creature, Oof. Not because of anything symbolic, just because that's the sound it made when it fell off a log yesterday and landed on its side like a sack of fur. As the day unfolds, Oof follows you everywhere. While you gather firewood, he trots behind you. When you stop to tie your cloak, he sits at your feet like a noble guardian who just happens to chase his own tail when bored. At mealtime, he sneaks a bone and trots off with the proud swagger of a thief, who's also your best friend. The elders are split on what to do. Some think it's bad luck to keep an animal so close. Others shrug and say, if it doesn't eat the children, let it stay. One elder leans in close and says, mark my words, next thing you know, we'll be feeding them on purpose. You nod solemnly. Too late. You start noticing that Oof isn't the only one. A few other canines lurk around the camp's edge, more cautious, more wild, but watching, waiting. It seems like they're studying you, figuring you out, which is funny, because you're doing the same thing to them. That evening, a hunter returns with a fresh kill of deer, long and lean. The tribe gathers to dress it, carving with swift, practiced hands. Oof hovers nearby, eyes wide, ears alert, tail wagging with shameless hope. You toss him a strip of meat. He catches it mid-air. The crowd murmurs with amusement. One person bets Oof will end up by the fire. Another says he'll wander off the next day and never return. Oof, promptly curls up beside your sleeping mat and snores loud enough to make a bear jealous. Debate settled. That night, the cave feels different, livelier. You're surrounded by your usual people snorers. Talkers. Fire hoggers, but now, there's a soft puffing sound at your feet, a warm shape pressed against your legs. And for once, the cold doesn't bite so hard. There's something comforting about having a creature who doesn't talk, doesn't judge, and doesn't care if your breath smells like smoked beetle. Just presence, just warmth. You drift off dreaming of wolves curled in rings around every fire. The next day, Oof earns his keep. Sort of. While you're out gathering with a small group, he alerts you with a growl. Moments later, you spot movement in the underbrush borer. Not dangerous, but not friendly either. Your group shifts position, readying weapons. Oof barks once. The boars snort and scatter. Crisis averted. Thanks to one scruffy alarm system, you praise him with a slap on the ribs and half a squirrel tail. He accepts both like a king. Later, while cleaning hides, you try to remember a time before Oof, before the soft padding of feet behind you, before the feeling that, even when alone in the woods, you're not truly alone. It's a strange realization that comfort can come from something without words. That survival might mean partnership. Historians often mark dog domestication as one of humanity's great leaps, not because it gave us furry companions, but because it signaled something bigger, a shift in mindset, from lone survivors to collaborators, from predators to partners. You think about that as Oof chases a beetle across the clearing, trips over a root, and faceplants into a log. Maybe not all dogs are noble. Still, as the days pass, others begin warming to the idea. Someone ties a strip of hide around a second pup's neck like a collar. Another person teaches one of the wildlings to sit by tossing chunks of bone. The cave echoes with new sounds, barks, whistles, the clatter of paws on stone. It's louder, but it's also better. At night, Oof sleeps close. You carve a small charm into a scrap of wood, a paw print, a half circle, a flame. You don't show it to anyone, but you tuck it into your pouch and think about the future. Because now, when you look around the fire, you don't just see people, you see a pack. You're ankle-deep in mud, trying to yank a cattail root from the swampy edge of a marsh, when you realize two things. One, you're about to fall face first into this smelly puddle, and two, this root better taste like roasted heaven. Because you've been at it for 10 minutes, and your hands now resemble tree bark. Welcome to the glorious life of a gatherer. Hunting gets the glory stories, the spears, the drama, the hero moments. But the real backbone of survival, it's this: the humble, tedious, quietly brilliant act of gathering. While hunters chase animals across miles, you and your foraging crew scour the land with an eye trained to notice the tiniest detail: a bush's drooping berries, a patch of mushrooms barely poking through frost, the disturbed leaves that hide a stash of edible bulbs. Today's haul includes a few prize finds: bitter roots that only taste terrible if you boil them wrong, berries that may or may not be fermented. You nibble one and suddenly feel friendlier than usual. and something the others are calling fire nuts, which snap when thrown into flames. You pocket a few, purely for entertainment. Historians still argue whether gatherers had higher status in early tribes than they're often given credit for. Some evidence suggests they provided the bulk of the group's calories, especially when big game was scarce. A fringe theory even posits that the first mathematicians were gatherers tracking seasonal plant cycles, noting patterns, building memory systems to record what bloomed where and when. You can believe it. The people who forage with you are sharp-eyed and even sharper-tongued. They know which mushrooms will help your fever and which ones will make you see colors that don't exist. They remember where the honey tree is, which bush has angry ants, and how to dig tubers without snapping the stalk. You once saw someone identify a plant by sniffing its shadow. That's real. You take a break under a tree whose bark peels like parchment. Someone passes you a handful of cracked seeds, roasted on a stone. You chew them slowly, while watching the others fan out into the brush like smoke tendrils quiet. Fluid. Focused. A child in the group holds up a leaf triumphantly. You walk over to inspect. It's not edible, but it is shaped like a sleeping bat. And honestly, that's worth a compliment. You ruffle their hair. They beam. The group communicates in shorthand. A whistle here. A click there. A wave that means this way. But quietly, you fall into rhythm. It's not glamorous, but it's efficient. And, occasionally, ridiculous-like when someone bends over to grab a snail and ends up covered in startled frogs. You help dig up a clump of roots that are so gnarled they resemble a screaming face. Everyone agrees not to eat those. There's something meditative about gathering. The repetition, the attention to small things, the way your body learns the land. You stop thinking about aches and hunger, and instead focus on leaf texture, root thickness, the scent of soil after it rains. It becomes a kind of language. You think about your ancestors. How many generations have squatted in dirt just like this, picking through weeds to find nourishment? You think about how their hands shaped the land, and how your hands now echo theirs. Midday. You return to camp with your bounty. It's not huge, but it's enough. Enough to stretch the stew. Sweeten the broth. Make someone's evening less grumbly. That's the real reward. Seeing someone bite into something you found and smile with greasy satisfaction. Back at the fire, the sorting begins. Bitter from sweet. Edible from experimental. You overhear someone suggest drying the berries and grinding them into powder. Another person proposes roasting seeds on hot coals, then smashing them into paste. The culinary creativity is endless. If slightly terrifying, you remember last winter's nut surprise, a dish that looked promising but turned out to be violently laxative. You lost 2 full days and your dignity. No one's forgotten, especially not you. Still, most experiments end well. Someone brews a leaf infusion that clears your sinuses so fast you feel like you've aged backwards. Someone else roasts bark into a smoky treat with the texture of old rope, but the flavor of forest dreams. You help, peeling roots and stirring stews. And realize this is your favorite part of the day. Transforming found things into shared meals. As twilight settles in, the tribe gathers around the fire. Dishes are passed. Bites are exchanged. And debates spark over which gathering route had the best view. One person swears they saw a tree shaped like a giant bird. Another claims they heard mushrooms singing. You don't question either. A few brave souls pass around a fermented berry mash. It tastes like regret, with hints of smoke. You smile politely and hope no one sees your eyes water. Oof, the dog sniffs around the food pile, finds something half buried, and trots off proudly with what may have once been a beet. You let him have it. The fire burns low. Bellies are full. You feel it then, that quiet, contented weight in your bones. The satisfaction of having pulled nourishment from the dirt and made it matter. A fringe theory floats through your memory some. Believe that gathering wasn't just survival, but spiritual, a form of communion with the earth. That for every root unearthed, the land gave back a story. You can see why. Every plant has its place. Every mushroom its season. Every berry bush its whisper. You lean back, staring at the cave roof, imagining the vines, flowers, and seeds that still wait out there, hiding beneath frost, growing slow secrets, and tomorrow, you'll find them. The cave's walls glow orange with firelight as someone nearby grinds ochre into powder, rhythmically scraping stone against stone. You're cross-legged on the floor, fingers stained with charcoal. Your newest creation, taking shape, two crude stick figures with arms flung wide, and something that's either a reindeer or a very sad moose. Artistic talent isn't the point. The point is that it means something. You glance over to where another tribe member smears a thick black line across the cave wall, then dots it with red. It's a hunt scene. One you lived through just last week. You remember the stampede, the spears, the way the mammoth turned at the last second. It almost trampled you. Now it's immortalized forever in smoky pigment. This is Story Time, Prehistoric Edition. And tonight, the walls get to speak. There's no formal schedule. No one calls a meeting. But after dark, when the food's eaten and the cold's tucked outside the stone door, people drift toward the walls. Someone hums. Another clicks a bone flute. And someone else begins to draw. Historians still debate whether cave paintings were purely decorative, religious rituals, or ancient history textbooks meant to record events and teach the young. A fringe theory even suggests they were mnemonic devices, visual anchors for storytelling and memory. You just know that when you trace your fingers through those chalky lines, you feel like you're touching more than rock. You're touching continuity. You add another figure to your scene. This one, holding something that might be a fish or might be a potato. Either way, it balances the composition. Someone peers over your shoulder, squints, and offers a polite grunt of approval. Nearby, the eldest woman in the tribe is working on a separate panel. Her hands shake with age, but her lines are bold, deliberate. She's outlining a sun, surrounded by animals, some real, some dream-born. No one interrupts her. When she paints, people go quiet. It's not reverence. It's just respect. You remember the first time you held a lump of red ochre. You were maybe 5 winters old. You smeared it on the cave floor and declared it a magic river. Someone laughed, but later, someone else painted it again, made it better. That river is still there, beneath a newer scene now, but if you squint, you can still see the outline. a child's imagination fossilized in dust. You shift and pick up a bit of burned stick, adding shadows to your drawing. You're not trying to make it perfect. You're trying to make it true. The proportions are off. The arm's too long. But the memory behind it is clear: the thrill of the chase, the breathless run, the crack of ice under your boots, a freeze frame in soot. Someone starts telling a story. Loud, theatrical, filled with hand motions and wildly inaccurate sound effects. It's about the time a bear wandered into camp and got spooked by a turtle. Probably not how it happened. But everyone's laughing. Even the ones who were there. Memories flexible like that. The children gather, eyes wide, mouths open. They point to figures on the walls and ask, "Is that you?" Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's no one. But always, the answer is yes. Because every drawing carries a little bit of everyone. The tribe isn't just living in the cave, it's writing itself into the cave. A younger member gestures for permission to start a new scene. They're nervous. You nod encouragement. They draw a spiral sun, a pair of footprints, and quite daringly a stick figure dancing. Someone gasps. Dancing is usually reserved for festivals. Clearly, a bold artistic statement. There's a shared silence after, the kind that hovers like smoke. You all look at the wall. Then, slowly, someone begins humming again. Low and steady. One of the elders taps a rhythm on a hollowed log. The younger artist grins like they've just invented fire. You step back to admire the collection. Mammoths. Deer. Abstract symbols. Handprints. Layered over handprints. A visual echo of everyone who's come before. You place your palm against the wall. Then dip your fingers in ochre and make a print. Your mark. Not grand. Not special. But yours. Historians point out that these cave prints often cluster near entrances or hearths, places of warmth. Gathering. Storytelling. That placement might not be accidental. These walls weren't private journals. They were shared. Performed. Witnessed. Someone points to a spot high on the wall where only a tall person could reach. A crude bird with outstretched wings. No one remembers painting it. Maybe it's old. Maybe it just showed up one day. A mystery. Every cave needs one. As the night grows colder, more people drift in, drawn to the glow of flickering images and the sense that this isn't just a pastime. It's something deeper. You don't have books. You don't have scripts. But you do have fire, story, and pigment. And somehow, that's enough. A few shapes near the ceiling are painted upside down. You once asked why. The answer was a shrug and a joke. Maybe they were lying down. Or maybe they were reaching toward something unseen. You lean back, letting your eyes drift across the rock ceiling. There's a shape up there that could be a fish, or a comet, or a sleeping fox. You decide it's all three. The fire snaps loudly. Someone laughs in their sleep. And the cave, now, alive with shadow and story, feels less like a shelter and more like a book with no end. Tomorrow, someone will paint again, and the walls will remember. You wake to the sound of dripping, not the ominous. Flood your cave kind of dripping, just the lazy, rhythmic kind, That means the ice is melting. Spring is coming. And with it, a strange shift in energy that makes everyone around you fidget, like they've had too many fermented berries. The snow outside is pulling back in patches, revealing brown grass, old bones, and treasures. Long forgotten, a broken spear tip here, a discarded hide scrap there. You squint into the sunlight and realize your world is about to change again. Warmer days bring more than new plants. They bring new work. And new dangers. The elders decide today is for repairs. You groan, but join the others hauling furs out of the cave, stretching them flat to check for tears and chew marks. Oof. Your loyal dog-like companion tries to help by dragging a hide across the dirt, tail wagging proudly. You let him feel useful. He's doing his best. You sit beside a few others and begin patching your cloak, fingers stiff with cold, but still remembering the motions. Poke, pull, tie, poke, pull, tie. This fabric has been with you through storms and snow, and it smells like smoke, meat, and faintly, regret. But you can't part with it. It's a part of your story now. Someone's trying to make new boots nearby, muttering to themselves about toe width and hide thickness. Another person's sharpening tools with a stone that's nearly worn through. You glance over and see a child trying to fix a broken basket using their teeth. It's not going well. Historians still debate just how sophisticated early tool repair and clothing maintenance techniques were. Some argue that Paleolithic humans were simply reusing materials until they fell apart completely. Others believe they had specific patterns, tools, and even designated repair experts. There's some evidence of bone needles with tiny carved eyes. You hold one now. Its curve smooth from years of use. And you wonder, who carved it? Whose fingers held it first? Repairs here aren't just about function. They're about pride. You don't want to be the one whose spear tip snaps mid-hunt, or whose leggings fall down in the middle of a run. Dignity Matter 7, when you're wearing a skirt made from squirrel hides. Later in the day, a group gathers to make rope. It's one of those activities that looks simple until you try it and end up tangled like a seaweed octopus. You twist strands of sinew between your palms, one over the other, again and again. Eventually, it begins to take shape. Strong, practical. Someone nearby is weaving a net with the patience of a glacier. You nod to each other in mutual respect, craft people of chaos. Nearby, someone's carving a new blade. You watch as flakes of flint chip away in precise little bursts, revealing a razor edge that glints with menace. It's beautiful, in a sharp, don't drop it on your foot sort of way. They test it on a piece of hydate slices, clean through. Everyone applauds softly, the prehistoric equivalent of a standing ovation. Then, someone pulls out the fire drill, the true test of patience and upper body strength. They place it carefully on a patch of dry bark, sprinkle tinder around, and begin spinning, and spinning, and spinning. Eventually, a thin wisp of smoke appears. You hold your breath. More smoke. A tiny glow. Then flame. The tribe erupts into quiet cheer, and the fire starter grins like they just invented the sun. As evening settles, the repaired tools and clothing are proudly displayed near the fire. Not for bragging, just to let everyone know. I'm ready. ready for the next hunt, the next move, the next anything. You sit near a friend who's weaving small beads into a bracelet. The beads are made from bone, shell, even smoothed pebbles. One has a faint spiral etched into it. They say it was passed down from a relative who once fought off a wolf with a spoon. You don't know if that's true. But it's a good story. A fringe theory floats into your thoughts some. Believe early humans repaired not just things, but relationships through shared work. That sitting side by side, stitching, carving, fixing, wasn't just about survival. Garrett was bonding. Reconciliation. You like that? That even while your hands are busy, your heart is too. As night falls, the fires burn warm and steady. People lean back, satisfied. Tools by their side. Cloaks wrapped tight. You test your repaired leggings with a few Kicksno wardrobe malfunctions. Excellent. Oof curls beside you. One paw, resting on your foot. He snores like he's training for it. You glance at your spear, to now sharpened and wrapped with fresh cord, and your cloak, newly patched, with a scrap that might have once been part of someone else's blanket. It's not just fixed, it's better, stronger. Tomorrow, the ice might break, the herds might return, or maybe there'll be another cave to explore, another river to cross, another story to etch into stone. But tonight, you've got warm feet, working tools, and a belly full of tuber stew. And for now, that's everything. It starts with a scent on the breeze. Something wild, familiar, but distant like memory wrapped in fur. You're walking the perimeter of camp when the wind shifts and hits you with it. Animal. Big? Maybe many. You freeze mid-step. Every instinct in your bones stands at attention. Moments later, a runner returns from a nearby ridge. Breathless, wide-eyed. Words come out fast and choppy. But the meaning is clear. The herds are moving. Southward. Closer. It's time. Within hours. The tribe is preparing. Spears are checked. Nets bundled. Packs loaded with dried meat and spare sinew. The hunters are buzzing with a quiet electricity. Even the gatherers and elders move faster than usual. Voix clipped. Hands busy. You grab your gear and join the flurry. This isn't just a hunt. It's the hunt, the kind that defines seasons. Maybe even years. Reindeer. Bison. Whatever four-legged miracle has decided to march itself near your camp. Everyone knows the drill. You track. You flush. You corner. And if you're lucky, you feast for days. The sun hasn't even broken the trees when your group sets out. The earth beneath your boots is soft with melt. The moss squishes slightly, leaving dark footprints that fade as the wind dries them. You've got your spear in one hand, a throwing rock in the other, and a dried berry in your cheek like a personal morale booster. Tracking begins at the river's edge. A line of prints. Unmistakable cloven. Deep. Pressed by heavy bodies moving in unison. They were here recently. Maybe this morning. You crouch and sniff the air again. Stronger now. They're close. Hunters spread out. Your party uses the terrain ridges for cover. Trees for concealment. One person climbs a low hill and gestures. Ahead. You ease forward. Every muscle alert, but key it. Even your breath goes soft. Then you see them. Dozens of reindeer, grazing in a shallow glade. Their coats ripple in the breeze. Antlers glint like ivory in the early light. They're gorgeoused, absolutely unaware of you. It's go time. You circle wide with your group, herding them gently, guiding them toward a funnel of terrain gully between two ridges. It's strategy, passed down through generations. Don't attack head-on. Guide, nudge, trap. You let out a soft call, just one. A mimic of a bird. The others respond with their own, forming a chorus of misleading sounds that trick the animals into moving just where you want them. Historians still argue whether prehistoric humans hunted with long-term strategy or simply took advantage of chaos. Some say early tribes developed drive lines and constructed stone traps. Others argue it was mostly about instinct and luck. What's clear is this: your tribe knows exactly what it's doing. The herd move as slowly. Then faster as your group begins to close in. Suddenly, one animal bolts. Then another. Then the entire herd surges like water, breaking a dam. You sprint alongside your group, your breath sharp, feet flying over the brush. One reindeer fares left separated, alone. You focus in. Just this one. You aim your spear and hurl it. It flies through the air and lands with a thud, not fatal dot, but deep. The reindeer stumbles, slows. You follow. Fast. Another hunter joins you, slinging a net around its legs. It collapses in a tumble of hooves and breath. You kneel beside it, hand on its flank, murmuring thanks, not loud, not formal, just a whisper to the wild. The animal blinks once, then stills. You press your forehead to its shoulder. It's over. Around you, others are calling out successes, signals, regrouping shouts. You rise and walk back toward the clearing. The hunt was good. Not perfect, but good. Enough. You sit on a rock, heart still pounding, and drink from a skin of cold water. The sun is higher now, and warmth begins to soak into your cloak. You look around at your companions, some smiling, some silent, all glowing with that particular light that only comes from earning your food with your own hands. A fringe theory once suggested early humans began forming spiritual beliefs because of hunting the taking of life. The rituals that followed, that deep respect for prey, led to mythologies, gods, and sacred practices. You believe it. In moments like this, it's hard not to. By late afternoon, the meat is being cleaned and prepared. Sinew is stripped, bone sorted, organs saved. Every part of the animal is used, nothing wasted. It's an orchestra of knives, stone, fire, and hands. You find yourself gutting a leg, the blade warm from use, your hands steady. The smell is strong, but not unpleasant, earthy. Riech, primal. You hum as you work, and someone joins in. A soft tune, old as the wind. Oof circles the group, occasionally nosing at scraps and then pretending he wasn't. You toss him a tendon. He catches it mid-air like a champion. The food will last. The tribe will eat. Tonight will be a celebration, not loud, but full. Full stomachs. Full hearts. Full fires. You sit by the edge of the clearing as twilight falls, chewing on a strip of fat and watching the sky shift from blue to gold to ember. The stars begin to blink on, one by one. Someone tells a story nearby about a time they once hunted a boar that turned out to be a very angry stump. You laugh so hard you snort. The moon rises. Bellies grow quiet. Firelight flickers across tired faces. You lean back and close your eyes. The animal's heartbeat still echoes in your palm. The scent of blood clings to your cloak. And in your chest, something deep and old settles. You hunted. You ate. You remembered. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. The first sign of trouble isn't a roar or a growl. It's a silence, a strange, heavy hush that falls across the forest like a wet cloak. You're out with a small group, checking trap-simple snares tied with sinew and baited with fruitand. Suddenly, all the birds stop singing. The wind holds its breath. Even Oof, usually the king of distraction, lifts his head and growls low. You signal the others with a sharp hand wave. Stop. The group freezes. Un moment l'attire. You hear it, a low rustle. Then a crack. Not human. Definitely not friendly. The trees sway. And out of the brush steps something massive. Bear, a huge one. Winter thin, but spring angry. Mangy. Mud-caked. Eyes glassy with hunger. You've seen predators before. But this one looks desperate. And desperation makes everything more dangerous. The group backs away slowly. You raise your spear. Not to provoke. Just to be clear. You mean business. The bear snorts. It steps forward. Then thank the mammoth spirits it turns and lumbers away. Crashing through undergrowth like a boulder with legs, everyone exhales. Someone laughs nervously. You don't. That was close. Predators are part of life here. You know them. You fear them. You sometimes admire them. But mostly, you try not to get eaten by them. Bears. Wolves. Big cats, each with their own personality. Their own rules. And when they show up, all those stories about how brave your ancestors were suddenly feel a little embellished. Back at camp, you report what happened. The elders nod. Not surprised. It's the season. One says, they're hungry. They're watching. You spend the rest of the day reinforcing the camp edge. Spears at the ready. Smoke pits refreshed. Scent-marked trails reburned to ward off unwanted guests. Some historians argue that fear of predators shaped human behavior more than any other force. That our fire circles, our caves, even our myths especially, the ones about monsters and gods were, all ways to make sense of the ever-present fact that we were once prey. A fringe theory even claims that the earliest gods were just bears misunderstood in the dark. That night, the tribe sits closer than usual. Fires burn higher. Children are pulled into laps. The cave mouth is blocked with a thick log, rolled into place by the strongest among you. Everyone pretends it's a normal evening, but you know different. You lie down near the wall. Spear within arm's reach. Oof curls beside you. Ears twitching. Even in sleep, your eyes flick toward every shadow, every flicker of movement. Nothing stirs. The next day, someone suggests moving camp just a little closer to the river, away from the thickets. Safer. You pack your few belongings quickly. This isn't the first time you've had to shift, and it won't be the last. Moving isn't chaos. It's rhythm. Everyone has their task. Some carry fire bundles wrapped in bark and moss. Others haul tools, bones, furs. The children carry smaller stones, beads, pieces of carved wood that may or may not be toys. Even Oof helps, dragging a basket of fish guts with theatrical grumbling. The new site is good. High ground, fresh water, plenty of escape routes. You help raise a new windbreak, just branches and hides tied between stones. But it does the trick. Then you scout for a new sleeping hollow. You find one under a leaning boulder, dry and mossy. After setting up, you join a watch party. Not everyone sleeps at Onsano since the bear. You sit in a half circle near the edge of camp, watching the dark. Occasionally, someone tells a story, quietly, about ancestors who turned into owls, or spirits who walk between trees. Stories meant to make the dark feel less sharp. One older member tells of a time a bear wandered into a different camp and lay down beside the fire like it belonged there. No one moved. For hours. Then it got up and left. They swear it happened. You hope it didn't. A soft noise breaks the calm twigs snapping. You all freeze. Then, a deer. Just a deer. You almost laugh in relief. But you don't. Because even a deer can lead something else close behind. The night passes without incident. By dawn, the birds return to song. You feel it then, that tension easing from your shoulders. The bear is gone. For now, you return to your new hollow and collapse. The world is quiet. The camp is still. You dream of paw prints in snow and firelight on fur. And somewhere, deep in the woods, something watches with patient eyes, but you're ready. Rain taps on the leaves like a slow drumbeat. Steady and soft. It's not the miserable kind of rain, the bone deep, freeze your fingers type. This is the gentle, soak the ground and wake the roots kind. You sit under a large overhang near the new camp, pulling your knees into your chest, listening to the steady rhythm of droplets on stone. You're not alone. Others sit nearby, some half dozing, some poking at small fires, some weaving cords or carving without urgency. Rain days are odd. The world slows down. The usual frenzy of survival eases. Just for a bit. You don't hunt in this. You don't gather. You wait. And in the waiting, something rare happens. You think. A child nearby is building a tower out of pebbles and muttering to themselves about sky giants. You smile. Someone else begins humming not quite a tune. More like the echo of Ani and others join in. The sound is low, warm, layered. It weaves through the space like smoke. You lie back and stare at the cave ceiling. Following the shapes, a deer that might be a bird, a smudge that could be the moon, or a fish, or both. You wonder if your ancestors had days like this where nothing had to be done right now. Historians still argue whether hunter-gatherers had more leisure time than later agricultural societies. Some claim that without crops to tend, people like you had hours each day to rest. I think B. A fringe theory even suggests that prehistoric humans spent more time in what we'd now call flow states, deep, focused relaxation, while crafting or dreaming. You believe it because right now, in this stillness, you feel something ancient, a kind of ease, the kind you only get when the world says, "Not today." Someone breaks out the bone flute. The first note is ambitious, but they keep going. And soon, a tune emerges lopsided, hesitant, but real. Others clap, snap, hum along. Someone taps a rhythm on a stick. A few children start a clumsy dance, arms flailing, feet slapping the wet stone. It's chaotic. It's perfect. You grab a flat piece of bark and start sketching with charcoal, just lines, spirals, dots. No plan, just movement. Oof places his chin on your foot and watches your masterpiece unfold like he's seen better. But he's being polite. A few tribe members begin telling stories, some true, some obviously not. One woman claims she once wrestled a fish the size of a child for 3 hours. Another swears she saw a rainbow touch the ground and turn a rock into gold. You all pretend to believe each other. That's the rule today. Outside, the rain turns to mist. The air smells of wet leaves, damp earth, and smoke. Someone brews a tea of bark and dried flowers, passing cups around. You sip and immediately regret. It tastes like sadness, but you nod politely. They worked hard on that. Later, you return to the overhang with a dry hide and wrap it around your shoulders. You sit cross-legged, watching water run in tiny rivulets across the packed dirt. A spider weaves a thread between 2 twigs. You wonder how many things in your world are that delicate, held together by threads. Moments. Timing. Someone leans over and hands you a small carved trinket. It's a bird, or a bear, or maybe both. It's smooth, warm from their hand. You tuck it into your pouch without a word. Gifting like this doesn't require ceremony, just presence. There's a soft thump nearby. One of the kids has fallen asleep mid-dance. They're curled on the stone, mouth open, hair plastered to their forehead. Someone covers them with a fur. Gentle as dusk, Oof yawns, loud and theatrical, then rolls onto his back. You scratch his belly without thinking. He thumps his tail and drools slightly. This is the good life. Apparently. As evening approaches, the rain stops entirely. The forest smells awake, alive. Birds return to their business. The fire crackles brighter. One of the elders stands and begins chanting low. Even a rhythm older than memory. It's not for performance. It's for grounding. For reminding, you join in. Even though you don't know all the words, it doesn't matter. The sound itself is enough. Later, you climb the ridge alone, just for a moment of quiet. The view stretches endlessly, rolling trees, glistening stones, the pale smear of twilight above the horizon. You exhale. The breath leaves your chest like smoke from a dying fire. You sit and think about time. Not hours or days or seasons, but deep time. The kind that caves remember. The kind rivers carry. The kind that doesn't need clocks. Rain days make you feel that way and rushed. Ansant. Small. In the best sense of the word, you make a promise. Silently. To remember this. Not just the scene, but the feeling, the quiet fullness, the sense that you belong not just to a tribe or a camp, but to the world itself. You head back down, heart lighter. And as you enter camp again, the children laugh. The fire glows. And someone's trying to balance an entire fish on their head for reasons that no one questions. It's a good night. The air has shifted again. There's a weight to it, like something about to begin. Or maybe something about to end. You wake early, before the sun, and everything is tinted blue. The fire's down to embers, and most of the tribe is still bundled in furs, lost in dream mumbling or soft snoring. But you rise. You always do. This morning, it's time to move again, not just a quick shift like before, but a proper migration. The big one. The kind you only do when seasons truly change. You've known it was coming. The signs were everywhere. The way the wind leaned. The dwindling game trails. The stories told more often around the fire about the other side of the ridge. And, this morning, with the frost clinging a little less tightly to the grass, the elders give the nod. It's time. You've done this before. Many times. You know the routine. You pack light. But smart. Everyone does. The tools are wrapped tight. The food bundled. Trinkets. Yes, but only the ones that mean something. You glance at your carved birdstone, now smoothed by months in your pouch. That comes with you. The fire is not extinguished. It's carried bundled carefully in moss and bark. The coals wrapped like a sleeping child. Cradled and protected. Fire is not just warmth. It's identity. You don't start over. You bring the flame forward. Oof trots beside you, already excited. His tail wags at every shadow, as if this migration is just another walk with new smells and the possibility of squirrels. Historians still argue whether these prehistoric migrations followed strict patterns or if early tribes moved more intuitively, responding to subtle cues in the land. A fringe theory even suggests that birds and animals watched closely over generations, acted like living calendars, guiding humans across enormous distances with uncanny accuracy. You believe it. There's something almost magnetic about the way your feet find trails that no one taught you. As if your ancestors are whispering beneath the dirt, the procession begins at dawn. Not a line. Not a march, but a moving cluster-like smoke, like wind, like a river deciding its own path. Children ride in slings or wobble. Alongside, the oldest members are supported, honored. Everyone plays a part. The forest greets you in silence, as if watching. The trail is narrow at first, carved by feet and hooves long before yours. The trees are tall and quiet. Occasionally, someone points to a marking an old notch, a worn stone, a symbol etched in bark. Memory signs. You leave one of your own, a bundle of twigs tied in a knot, placed beside a crooked root. You'll know it if you pass this way again. The first rest stop comes after several hours. Feet are sore. Spirits are high. Someone finds a patch of early berries and insists they're the best ones yet. They are not. But no one complains. You sit beneath a leaning pine, watching the smoke from a new fire curl into the sky. The coals survived the trip, still glowing in their bark cradle. It's a good sign. Migration isn't just movement. It's storytelling. Along the way, people remember out loud. That's where the snow bear tried to steal our basket. Here's where the twins got stuck in the mud and blamed the river. That tree still has my mark from 5 winters ago. Oh. You feel yourself becoming part of the trail's memory. You pass a clearing where bones lie scattered and not fresh. Not dangerous. Just quiet. Maybe a reindeer. Maybe something else. You pose. Whisper, "Thanks," and move on. As the day stretches, the terrain changes. The forest thins. The hills rise. You help push a small cart up a slope. Breath burning, but heart steady. Everyone's helping. Everyone's watching out. Even the smallest hands carry something: a stick, a feather, a story. Near dusk, you reach the halfway place. It's not the final destination, but it's close enough to rest properly. A wide patch of flat ground near a stream. Clean water. Good visibility. You've camped here before. Seasons ago. It feels different now, but familiar. Tents go up. Fires are kindled again. A few people chase birds off the supply bundles with loud claps and sillier curses. Someone trips over a root, and laughter rings through the trees. It's good to laugh when you've walked all day. Dinner is simple dried meat, boiled roots, wild onion. You eat with your hands, leaning back against your pack. Your feet throb, your back aches, but you're content. Later, you take a quiet walk by the stream. The water reflects the fading light, shifting between blue and gold like a living thing. You toss in a stone and watch the ripples. You think about how far you've come just today. But in life, you're older now than some who once led these walks. You remember being the child riding in the sling, watching the world pass by. Now, the world is under your feet. You return to camp just as the stars appear, sharp and bright, through the thinning canopy. The elders sit close, heads bent, whispering the next steps of the journey. You'll reach the valley in 2 more days. If the weather holds, if your feet don't fall off, you laugh quietly to yourself. Then climb into your furs beside the fire. Oof curls at your side. Sighing, a great dog sigh. You reach out and touch your pouchbird stone still there. The camp settles, and the stars above seem to nod, as if to say, "Yes, you're on the right path." Morning breaks not with birdsong, but with silence a soft, anticipatory stillness that feels like the forest itself is holding its breath. You stretch under your fur blanket, joints creaking like old bark, and blink into the golden light. Today is the last stretch, the final push to the new home. You rise slowly, groaning in all the appropriate places, and join the others already up. Fires are being doused, and coals secured in their mossy cradles. Packs are tightened, straps checked. Even Oof is oddly calm this morning, his tail flicking instead of full-on wagging. He knows too. You're the last to leave the resting grove, turning one final time to look at the clearing. There's a pile of charred ash, a few footprints already fading, and a single twist of bark left on a stona, tiny offering. A marker. This place remembers you now. The trail steepens as you climb toward the valley. The sky is unusually clear. An enormous bowl of blue stretching over everything. Wind rustles through high trees, tugging at cloaks and hair. You feel small but carried, as if the land itself is guiding you forward. At the crest, the valley opens before you, wide and green and sunlit. It's beautiful, the kind of beauty that doesn't shout, it just is. Rolling hills, patches of forest, a ribbon of water winding through the middle like a silver snake. You stand there a long time, not speaking, just breathing it in. You start the descent. It's cautious at first. Then, faster as confidence grows, a few of the younger ones run, whooping like birds. Oof chases them, barking joyfully. The rest of you laugh and keep walking, step after deliberate step. The new site is just as you'd hoped. Dry ground, good shade, plenty of game trails nearby, and the river clean, cold, full of promise. You drop your pack and sit by the water's edge, cupping your hands to drink. It's like tasting a future. Setting up camp is smoother this time. Everyone knows the rhythm. Tools are laid out. Fire bundles opened. Hides stretched. The elders smile quietly, moving with practiced ease. Children explore the edges, calling out discoveries like a flat rock or a weird bug with equal enthusiasm. You build your new sleeping hollow beneath a crooked willow. Its branches, like lazy arms, reaching out to shield you. You line it with moss and furs. And, when you lie down just to test it, you almost fall asleep right there. But the fire calls. That night, the tribe gathers in the middle of the camp. There's food-roasted roots, dried fish, some wild greens. Someone found berries. Someone else made a game of who could hold the sourest face after eating one. You win. Your expression is now legend. A celebration begins not loud, but full. Someone plays the bone flute again, this time more confidently. People clap, stamp, sway. One person juggles 3 stones for about 3 seconds, then drops all of them and bows dramatically. Laughter follows like a wave. You sit near the fire, your legs stretched out, cloak wrapped around your shoulders. Oof leans against your side, radiating warmth and gentle dog farts. You don't mind. Then someone calls for stories. You hesitate, but then you stand. You talk about the last migration, about the rain day, the bear near the traps, the moment the herd almost got away. You keep it simple, but your voice carries. People listen, and when you sit back down, someone claps you on the back and says, "Tell that one again tomorrow." Oak, maybe you will. Historians still wonder how oral traditions were preserved in times like yours. With no writing, no books. How did stories last for generations? Some say it was the rhythm, the repetition. Others say memory was sharper when it had to be. A fringe theory even proposes that the act of telling a story changed your brain chemistry, locking it in deeper. You think it's all true. The fire burns lower. People drift off, one by one. Some sleep right there, beneath the stars. Others return to their new shelters, pulling furs over tired limbs. You stay just a bit longer, watching the flames flicker. You remember every place you've been, every scent, every sound, every scrape and scar and triumph. It's all woven into your body now. You press your hand into the soft dirt beside you, leaving a faint imprint. Tomorrow, it'll fade. But for now, it's yours. You rise, stretch, and head toward your hollow beneath the willow. Oof follows. Already half asleep. You curl into your furs. The night cool but kind. The stars blink above, ancient and unbothered. You close your eyes. You've walked miles. You've lived ages. You've told stories. And now, you rest. The fire's embers are low now, glowing soft and deep in the quiet dark. Around you, the world has grown still, like it's exhaling after a long day. No chatter, no footsteps, just the occasional whisper of wind through leaves and the faint creak of cooling stones. You lie curled beneath your fur, the warmth of Oof's steady breath rising and falling beside you. The air smells like moss and pine, and the last trace of smoke. You shift slightly, feel the softness of the ground beneath you, and listen to nothing and everything somewhere in the distance. A night bird calls, once, then silence again. Your muscles are heavy now, warm and satisfied. The kind of tired that isn't a burden it's earned. It sinks deep into your bones and lingers like a lullaby. You've walked valleys. You've made fire. You've watched the sky turn from dusk to dawn. And through it all, you've belonged. The tribe sleeps near. The stars keep watch above. And for this one moment, this exact breath, the world is simple. No clocks, no noise, just your heartbeat and the rhythm of the earth below it. You inhale slowly and let it go. The night wraps around you like a second skin gentle, quiet, and full of dreams older than language. Tomorrow, there may be new trails, new stories, but for now, there's only this stillness, and it is enough. Good night. Sweet dreams.